And now, weighing in out of the blue corner, Josh the Pug Thompson. 100% agree. And on the other mic, he weighs in from the red corner, Big John McCarthy.
It's the week we've been waiting for. I'm telling you. There's this week.
Seems like it's been forever.
I know. We've got this week. We've got Conor McGregor versus Donald Cerrone, which I cannot wait for. And then we've also got next week. We got Cyborg versus Julia Budd, as well as one of the featherweight World Grand Prix fights on that card. That's another great fight. And Aaron Pico's on that card as well. So we've got a lot of good fights in the next 2 weeks. I'm excited.
Yes, we do. It is. I'm looking forward to this fight. I look at the, 245 had so many good fights on it, so many big fights, and I was like, man, they just stacked that card. And I look at 246, and I'm buying it. I have to watch Cowboy and Conor, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But I look at, I've seen Raquel and Holly Holm fight once already. Mm-hmm. I am interested in the undercard of. I want to see Macy Barber against Roxanne Modafferi.
Ooh.
I really want to see that fight because it's going to say a lot. And if Macy goes to the ground with Roxanne, she's going to have some problems down there with her. But she can stand up, and she's much faster, and she's much more fluid in the way she does her stand up. So I think it's going to be a really good fight. And then the other female fight that I'm really looking forward to is Claudia Gadelha.
Oh, yes.
I think that's going to be a good fight. That's going to be interesting. So there's some good fights on there. There's just not that major, wow, they've got all these championship. There's no championship fights. Mm-mm. And so, sometimes those are sometimes the best cards, though. So I'm looking forward to it. And I am looking forward to Cowboy and Conor. It'll be interesting. I think I know how it's going to go, but we'll see. You never know for sure. That's why you fight the fight.
Who is Claudia fighting? Who's Claudia fighting? I can't remember her name.
Rose? No, it's not Rose.
It's not Rose.
No.
Rose is fighting Andrade again, I believe.
I've lost my mind.
Yeah, I know it's a good opponent.
But it's a good opponent. I'm trying to remember.
Who?
Alexa Grasso.
Grasso, yeah. Oosh.
Which is Alexa's got good stand up.
Not to mention she's smoking hot. Not to mention she's smoking hot. She comes out of the same can as Alejandra from Bellator.
They do.
Wherever they're breeding them down there, I need to
Lobo
go to
Gym, baby.
Wherever that gym is. People just need to hang out down there. Sorry, man, but those two girls they're great. They're pay-per-view buy TV. Like, I want to buy it just to watch them fight, but she's gonna have her hands full with Claudia, man. Claudia is just nasty. I trained with her a couple years here at AKA, and she just has that nastiness about her when she gets on top of you in the grappling jiu-jitsu. I mean, I remember training with her. She tried ripping my leg off with the heel hook, and I was like, whoa. This is training. She full go went for it, and I was like, whoa. We became good friends after that. Obviously, I hit her in the face a couple times, and then we started liking each other. But
there you go.
But she's a great person, great trainer.
She is.
As after that first initial those couple transitions, she's a good person, man. I really like her, and I think she's finally kind of found her home over there with Frankie Edgar and those guys over there, and she enjoys being over there. I think that's more of like the style here at AKA. You got to find a gym that suits you.
Yeah.
Aaron Pico came up to AKA and trained, and I think he just was like, it's just not really for me. It just wasn't for him, And then he went to to the Body Shop, to Antonio McKee's place, and he liked it there, But then obviously you have AJ McKee there, him there. You've got Joey Dick. You got all these top talented guys there, all young and up and coming guys. Sometimes it just gets a little hectic and it gets crowded in there with the media and a lot of.
Sometimes you have people talking in your ear.
Yeah. Yeah, we know. There's that, and then, but I think what he needed.
That was bad.
Yeah, what he needed though is exactly what I think what he got. So he went down to Jackson Wink and he found a little bit of a home there. It's not expensive to live there. He's he's got mentors there. He's got people that can help groom him and take care of him. And, and there's plenty of smaller people there as well for him to train with and work with. So a lot of top talent there. I mean, what's his name? Patrick Mix is there, I believe, right?
Hello.
That kid is nasty good.
Come on, brother. I did that tweet when before the New Year's and Ryzen, put out that Yuki was, going to be in a submission master. He was going to, what submission was he going to put on,
Mix.
what he was going to put on a submission clinic against Patchy Mix. And I went, yeah, okay, but don't be surprised if Patchy Mix puts one on him.
Yeah.
And he just made him look. He got out of an armbar that was, that was set up very nice. Mm-hmm. I will give it. It was set up nice. Mix got out of it very smoothly, very cleanly. And when he decided to latch on, he set that guillotine up. You could see him set it up. He let him feel like, oh, I can go this way. And it was exactly where he wanted him to go. Catches that guillotine. And once it was on, it was over. So he's looking great, man. He deserves. Tell me who should be fighting for the bantamweight title. Horiguchi, walked away from the bantamweight title because he's hurt. Walked away from the Ryzen title and the Bellator title, and I give him props for doing that. I think, that is what a classy fighter does. He doesn't sit there and he's not holding anybody back. He's saying, hey, when I'm healthy, I'm going to come back and get it back. But who should fight for that bantamweight title? I think Patchy Mix deserves it.
Oh, man. Who else is there? I mean, outside, realistically, if we were to have him fight James Gallagher, that'd be you have the two of them fight possibly for the number one spot. I really don't know. I couldn't tell you.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Should be good, though. I'm excited. Look, we got a little sidetracked because we went all over the place.
Yeah, we got totally sidetracked. Let's talk about Conor and Cowboy.
All right, let's talk about Conor and Cowboy. Let's talk Conor and Cowboy. We've said it, I don't know how many times. We're going to continue to say it. But I will say this. I read something today from John Kavanagh, and John Kavanagh said the guy that beat, referring to Conor, the Conor McGregor that beat Eddie Alvarez so easily, this Conor McGregor beats that Conor McGregor smoothly. That makes me feel, there's a couple things that make me, fighters come into their own. He's always been talented. He's always had good footwork. He's always had good power. He's a very smart in the cage fighter.
Yep.
I consider him to probably have one of the highest fight IQs I've seen. I can't. There's a couple other guys that I can equate. They're off the top of my head. I can't think of them right now, but I do know there's a lot of good guys out there. If I was to think in terms of who have great fight IQs, I could give it to them. But he's right up there with the top echelons of guys of fight IQs. With him, I feel like the Khabib loss was something that really rubbed him the wrong way. And here, it didn't just rub him the wrong way, is that he knew that he didn't do everything in his power to win that fight from the beginning of his camp through his camp and to the fight. And I know you guys probably get sick of me saying because of me or because of I'm giving you guys my personal experience.
It's called insight.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And I'm just giving you guys my personal experience, my insight, as Big John with God. I'm giving you my insight is that happened to me. And I'll give you the fight. I was fighting Clay Guida. I looked at the film on him and he looked horrible. He just looked like he had a lot of energy. He didn't look good. And when I was in that camp, I was at the nightclub every weekend partying, whether I was drinking or not sometimes, but it didn't matter. I was up till 4 a.m., sometimes on Wednesday, sometimes on Thursday, and I had to go train the next day. Don't get me wrong. Every day I made training, but you're not the same guy you would have been had you not been up till 4, sometimes 5 in the morning, and I didn't care. It just was like, I'm going to show up. I'm going to win. It was the first big fight for Strikeforce, and so when he started saying that all the things that I was listening to him with his interview with Ariel, and I said a couple of things where he just wasn't he was drinking during that camp. He was, and sure, maybe it's a little bit of drink. Maybe it's like 1 or 2 drinks on the weekend, but it all adds up. It does eventually get to you. It doesn't help you get to your goal of where you want to be. Not the part that when he was starving when he first started his career, and when he was bragging in the center of the cage, 60 G's, baby, 60 G's. That's the hungry Conor that we want to see again. And we may have got that Conor back, because the Khabib thing was eye-opening for him. I can't just go to the club and drink and be out till 4 a.m. or even if I'm not drinking, just being out. I feel like this whole thing has caused him mature. Maybe sure. Ariel, like producer David said, Ariel was catapulting him a little bit for all the assault charges and all the other shit that was going on. But the bottom line is, all those things are on your mind, and you're not the same fighter. But even now, they're still on his mind. I think the reality is maybe hopefully set in that he is maturing as a person, maybe as a husband, maybe as a family man, whatever it is, but he's maturing. Hopefully, I'm hoping the best for that. I feel like I lost your mic.
Yep. How's that? Better?
I got you now.
I don't understand why. But
so I just feel like we may end up seeing right in front of us the evolution of Conor if he wants to be that guy again that he was when he first started, but a mature Conor. And I can't even think if he was to get smarter in that cage. I can't even think about like how good he could potentially be if he got smarter in the cage.
You talk about Chael Sonnen actually came out with a clip about the fight that Conor had with Eddie Alvarez. And he talked about that guy that night, what I saw out of him was possibly the best mixed martial artist I've ever seen. And I tell you what, he's pretty well close to being right there.
Yeah.
Because I was in that cage, and I can tell you, he could not miss that night. He didn't get touched with hardly anything.
Yeah.
And Eddie Alvarez is a stud. He is just a balls tough fighter who can, he can swat with anyone. He gets hit, he gets hurt, he comes back with a vengeance in every fight. So even when he got hit and hurt against Conor, I was like, all right, he'll come back, and he tried. And he tried to do all kinds of different things in that fight. Nothing worked for him because every time that he came into range to try to land a shot, he missed, and Conor made him pay for it. And that is the Conor that if you're going to fight that guy, you're going to have a long night. He needs to be frustrated. That's the one thing that I saw in the Khabib fight. Khabib drove him to the point of frustration. And when he gets frustrated, that fight IQ goes down. Mm-hmm. He doesn't fight as well. But the other part is this, and I say it all the time, is if you're a world-class athlete, I don't care if you're Conor, if you're Khabib, if you're anybody, the thing that Khabib does that you have to be impressed with is he's always taking care of himself. Mm-hmm. He's always eating pretty clean. He's always doing the right thing. He doesn't drink. He doesn't do drugs.
Nope.
And if you are going to be this top-level athlete, you're like a Ferrari. And every time you're throwing whiskey down your gullet, that's like putting sugar in your gas tank.
Says the guy with the whiskey wall, by the way. Says the guy
yes,
with
sir,
the
I admit it. Okay, I have no problem with sugar in my gas tank.
Yeah.
But no, if you're going to compete and you're going to do those things, don't expect to put shit into your gas tank and expect that vehicle to run at that same level that it's capable of when you're doing all these things right. And you will pay for it eventually. I think he paid for it. He paid for it in that fight with Khabib, and hopefully he learned because, again, he's a young man, and he's got to learn from his mistakes. And if he's learning from his mistakes, great. That's what makes you improve, and that's what we all want to see, an improved Conor McGregor.
Yeah, I'm not gonna argue too much on the fact that he looked phenomenal that night. I feel a little bit of that night though to touch on what Chael has said. That Conor McGregor has a very that Conor McGregor should walk through Cowboy. Yeah, which is the distance, the reach, the range, just his precision on where he landed the punches that night was phenomenal. But I also think that Eddie kind of had lost the fight before he got in the cage. He already knew that he was upset. He already knew that he was going to try to knock him out. you could hear his corner yelling, like, let's set up the takedown. And he never even really kind of gave an effort to it. There's a little bit, but not the effort that you would normally see from Eddie Alvarez. Now, to touch on that, though, as well, I've trained with guys like Thomas Dion, who's really good, world-class kickboxers, and they make you flinch. They make you move in things like, you thought something was coming, it wasn't coming, and when you try to defend or you try to slip, something else comes from that angle. Like, they're setting you up the whole time. So it made him very flinchy. You know, like when you're constantly caught like a deer in headlights, like you're stuck. You're flinching all the time, and that makes you a step slower, and it makes it easier for them to get off. And that's exactly what happened that night.
Yeah, absolutely. It's 100%. You got it right. In that, the one thing going into that, if you're Eddie going into it, you got a guy that's going after your title. Yours is the title on the line. You're the bigger guy. You got a guy coming up in weight. And all of the things that Conor did, and this is where Conor is incredibly intelligent. You talk about fight IQ. Listen to what he says about fighters before the fight. He will pick out where their weakness is, and he'll say it to them. He'll say something about, you don't move well to your left. You got a problem when that happens, and I'm gonna exploit it. And he exploits it. He's very good, and it's, not only him, it's his team. They look at tape and they see where that flaw is, that weakness that, every fighter's going to have one, and he works at taking advantage of it. And part of taking advantage of guys is mentally getting into their head. The problem, that Conor had with Nate Diaz, he couldn't get into Nate's head. Nate is who he is, and he's basically, he looks at it and goes, fuck you.
Yeah.
He doesn't get, upset. He'll fight on the moment, but he's really not upset. He's just like, you don't mean anything to me.
No.
Where other guys, they start to allow that talk to build inside, and they, Dustin Poirier, he let it get to him so badly that he wasn't able to perform because he wants to hurt you that night, and that's usually going to lead to a bad performance.
Yeah. So I think, to touch back on what you were saying about the Khabib fight, he had the long layoff. He was, I think, drinking while he was just doing his normal bits, whether he was barbecuing on the weekends and having drinks with family, or he was at the club or doing whatever. But when he got in there, when he left MMA, he had a dominant performance. But when he came back to MMA, it just wasn't he was expecting it to be the same. And it wasn't the same. He thought he was going to jump back into what he called his sport, and it was just going to fall by its side like it was doing for him before. And it just wasn't the same. And not with somebody like Khabib. And now someone like Khabib takes this extremely serious. I mean, like, I don't know if I want to see the studies and the scientific studies behind the guys that are Muslim that end up doing like Ramadan and they do their fasting because physically strong. I feel like you look at the wrestlers that come out of there, you look at the fighters that come out of there, there's got to be something. And I'm going to be on Joe's show next week, and I want to talk to him because I'm sure he's done a lot of insight on something potentially like that with the fasting, intermittent fasting and other fasting. But I feel like there has to be something behind that. There has to be something they do. They for their whole segment of Ramadan, they basically they're fasting, and there's already been studies that show that it makes them physically a little bit stronger. It makes the body retains more of the actual nutrients from the food when you do eat, so it helps you build, I guess, your muscles, stronger ligament, whatever it is. But I'm interested to see how that all works. But I think with Conor, to go back on Conor, in that fight when he got taken down, there was moments where he was against the cage, sitting upright, and Khabib was hanging on his legs, and he was just expecting that throughout the fight that, okay, I'm good, I'll get up, it's ticking away. Khabib's just making you carry his weight, and the whole time Khabib's thinking, I'm gonna smash you, and Conor's thinking like, if I ever get to my feet, I'm gonna knock you out. And that was pretty much the only game plan that I saw out of him. There was never like I'm not gonna get up. He just it didn't happen.
But it comes down. Look at, this is just a comparison. It's not fighting. Michael Phelps is the greatest Olympic swimmer of all time, the greatest swimmer of all time. Okay, Mark Spitz won seven gold medals in one Olympics. I think Phelps is somewhere around 23 gold medals combined in all the Olympics that he's done, right?
But he won 8 that one Olympics.
But he cannot leave the sport of swimming and then come back and do it for 6 months and expect to perform the way he was performing when he left. It just doesn't happen. We digress. And you must, if you are that top level athlete, you are training hard just to stay at that level.
Yeah.
Because if you don't train hard, you start to digress and you start to go down. That's just the way life is. And Conor got, he did the boxing thing and he had a lot of time off. And in that time off, he wasn't progressing and everybody else was. And that fight coming back against a guy like Khabib, I give it to Conor that, he wants to take on top level competition and, fight against the very best. But Khabib had been fighting and he had been fighting good people and he had been smashing good people. And Conor hadn't been fighting at all. And no matter what, if you're not in the gym and you're not fighting, you're probably going backwards. And I think he went backwards for a while. And I think, now John Kavanagh, and like I said, I had talked to a couple people out of there, and they all say he looks phenomenal. They say, we haven't seen him look like this in so long. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he was always there. In the past, I know that he had been training. He would train for a couple days, and he'd be gone. He would train, and he'd be gone. And now he's back to being the guy that they've always known, that was in the gym, always there, helping out other guys. He's back to being the fighter that he can be.
How old is he?
30 years old now.
He's 30. And I've said this because I feel like from my actual peak in my prime was 27 to 33. I still had I still had a little bit of good fights at 34, but they weren't the best. You know what I mean? Like in that 32 to 33 range was like when I felt like from 27 to 33, I felt outside of getting injured in camp, like I felt fucking phenomenal. I felt like I was subbing guys that were some of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the world at 170, 185, like training and rolling with all the best guys. I mean, like you're just like, fuck, sparring with like top guys. I mean, just never felt ever that I couldn't hang with the best 170. I had Fitch, Kostick, and Swick all in the gym at that time with me. I was able to wrestle, grapple, and and sure they'd beat me in in things, but then I'd have opportunities and chances of beating them as well. But I mean, when you're hanging with some of the three best guys at 170. I just knew walking into every fight at 155, like, like this is, there's not much. I'm feeling extremely confident. And I think with Conor, like just being in the gym, being there all the time, understand like he's got fucking great guys there now. Like before,
he's got great guys.
He's got really good guys out of his camp. I mean, before I'm sure he had good guys, but they were building themselves up. Him and John Kavanagh, and they're building themselves up to get where they're at. And now that they're there, it's like I think they've done a great job of developing a fighter IQ for Conor, not just relying on John Kavanagh to present that fighter IQ, but the two of them I feel like the two of them brainstorm it together and they come up with it, and they're very smart in how they present the fight. I don't know. I don't see outside of Cowboy getting the takedown. And I'm not saying he needs to force it. It could be anything. He could catch a kick and take him down. He could, he could get in the clinch and foot sweep him, or he could knee him. He could drop him, to the body or something like that, or something along those lines.
That ain't happening.
And end up on top. He could end up he could foot sweep him. He could kick the inside leg, whatever it is. We're going to end up in a position where he could end up scrambling to being in the top position. If Donald gets on top of him, I think Donald's got a good chance of working for a submission on him.
No doubt. The thing that really turned me into okay, I think Conor's going to win this fight is when Donald said, he goes, I'm going to stand up and bang with him. And I'm like, okay, you can do that in the beginning. I don't have a problem with that. It's going to start on the feet, but you have, in my opinion, a distinct advantage in your jiu-jitsu game, which is seriously underrated.
Yep.
You have the ability to pull off submissions. You have the ability to catch him in a lot of different things. You are good there, so why not work towards bringing the fight there? If you bring the fight there, you're taking away his best tools. You're taking away his left hand. You're taking away his ability to control distance and range, and you're making the fight much more winnable for yourself. And so I really hope that Cowboy, is just putting it out there, hey, I'm going to do this, when he knows in his mind, when I get the chance, I am taking you to the ground. And if he does that, I think he's got a chance of winning the fight. If he doesn't do that, I just don't see him winning, especially he does not perform well against southpaws. He's got that his lead kick with his left leg is great, but it's that, kick with his right leg that he always tends, I've done him in several fights where he's knocked guys out with that right leg kick, and it's devastating the way he sets it up and throws it. It's not going to work against the southpaw the same way, and he just doesn't fight as well against southpaws. It's just his ability to maintain the range and control the fight is just not the same, and so I think Conor has a distinct advantage in the stand-up game, even though I think Cowboy's a great striker, but Cowboy taking the fight to the ground, I think he's got a chance to win. If he doesn't, I don't think he's got a chance.
Yeah, I think he also has to understand that he may not be able to hold him down the first time. We saw with Khabib that Conor was able to get up. Conor was actually, to me, honestly, in that fight, he won me over more so on the fact that he's better on the ground than people are giving him credit for.
Oh, he's good on the ground. He's not a submission guy, but he's got great body positioning. He's got great body awareness. He's got balance. He's good down there. You look at when that fight against Khabib started, Conor came out and he was pressing. He was in Khabib's grill. And Khabib ends up shooting that low single, getting a hold of the leg, and there was a whole lot of activity between the two where Conor, reaches through, has the crotch, is holding. Now, the big difference in it was Conor decides to try to strike at times, and when he decides to strike, he started to lose positions. And that's what happens when you open up your hands and stuff, and Khabib is not. But there was still, that whole first scenario took probably, a minute and a half to play out until Khabib got him with his back against the cage.
Yeah. Yeah, what you also have to remember is that when guys like Conor and they're working on the crotch and they're trying to elevate, that's more of a kind of a stalling tactic or a positioning tactic to hold the position that you have. But no ref's going to jump in and be like, okay, look, stand back up to your feet in MMA. In wrestling, they'll be like, okay.
Wrestling.
But not here. So what happens also too is Khabib's just chilling. He's just relaxing. He's hanging out. He's like, look, every time, like you said, he opens up the strike, I'll advance my position a little bit more. Yep. Even if he doesn't open up the strike, Conor's he's not as comfortable as Khabib is in being in that position, whether it's a deep crotch. He's not as comfortable, and he also doesn't know the next step and the next step and the next step after that. If Khabib was to make the transition, he doesn't
have four transitions to go to. He's got 1 to 2.
Yep, exactly. And
that's the difference in their levels.
And that's the difference in the level of what the wrestling perspective is. As far as with Cowboy just needs to take that into consideration. Like, look, if I do take him down, he may get back up and not let that frustrate you. A lot of times, there was times I went into fights and I told myself, okay, you got to get the takedown, you got to get the takedown. But in the back of my mind, I always told myself, you're probably not going to get the first one or the second one. So don't get frustrated. Just set him up. And it was true. Like, hey, you're probably not going to get the first and second because they're expecting you to do it. But in the third and the fourth, when you've made them a little bit more tired or you've actually let your hands go a little bit more, which helps set up everything.
They're a little bit slower in their ability to stop it.
And they come a little easier. And then even when you do get them down, you may not be able to hold them down. So you have to go back to whatever positions you think you can do to get them back down and return them back to the canvas. So I think Cowboy has a chance.
There's no doubt he's got a chance.
If you had to give it a percentage, give me a percentage. 10%? 15%?
Oh,
55?
for Cowboy?
55?
No, I'll give him, I think Cowboy's got a 40%. I'll give him 40% chance.
Okay.
Because Cowboy can stand up and strike. He's got a very solid stand-up game. So he can go, tit for tat with Conor for a little bit without being damaged. But it's going to be that same thing I think that you saw. It's going to be done a different way. But what you saw against Tony Ferguson with Cowboy, you saw that first round, Cowboy did very well. Mm-hmm. And then you saw that he just started to systematically get broken down by the shots started landing. And as the shots start landing, he becomes less and less effective. And if Conor is able to maintain control of that fight as far as the positioning, he's very accurate. He's one of the most accurate guys I've ever seen in the cage. When he decides to shoot a shot, it usually touches where he wants it to be at, and that will just start to diminish Cowboy. And little bits are going to start to add up to big bits, and eventually he's not going to be able to take it anymore.
I just feel like with the comparison with Tony, though, Tony will ramp up. It felt like Tony doesn't even get started till like the second round. Like he's just getting warmed up. Like, it's like your diesel engine. Yeah. You turn it on and you got to like wait to actually turn the key completely over. It's just one of those things.
Got to get the glow plugs warm.
Glow plugs warm. And he's just, Tony to me is, so in the second round, he's picking it up. He's ramping up. By the third round, he's like, okay, I'm ready to go. And the fucking fight's over. Conor, though, at 170, I don't know if he'll be able to do that. They say he's in great shape. I've heard that song and dance from a bunch of camps, and the guy comes out and just fucking lays an egg by the end of the second round. He's just on his back getting smashed. You never know. So this is
a 5-round fight.
This is why we love the fight game.
Yeah, because why. I'm sitting there saying I'm going with Conor. I think he's going to win the fight. But there's no doubt Cowboy can win it. And so many ways that he can win it more than Conor. I think he's got the bigger tool chest. Mm-hmm. He's got the ability to do more things in that fight than Conor does. The question is he going to be able to, institute those things in that fight and create the problems for Conor that are going to throw him off?
Yeah, I mean, I think they both have all the tools. I'm gonna give Cowboy.
Let's hear your percentage.
I'm gonna give him 30%.
You're giving him less than me, man.
I am gonna give him less than you. I am. It's just I want to say, I give him the percentage rises the longer the fight goes.
Oh, look, no doubt. If this fight, as it goes round to round, the chances of Cowboy winning it increase more and more. If you were going to tell me, hey, John, I'm not going to tell you who wins. It goes the 5 rounds. I'm going to say Donald Cerrone wins the fight.
Yeah,
if you're going to say, John, it ended in the first round, I'm going to say Conor McGregor won the fight.
You want to know why I get that? Why I'm giving you that perspective is because if you go back and you watch the fight with Nate Diaz, part 2, he even still looked like he had jello-y legs, like going into the fourth. Okay, I want to say the fourth round, or was it the third round? Anyways,
between the third and fourth?
The third and fourth, his legs were a little jello-y. Like he would throw punches and kind of like wobble his upper body. Like I just feel like I don't know if you can get rid of that and putting on more weight. I don't know if that's going to make it better.
Yeah, but see, here's your difference. This is where I talk about Conor and say if Conor controls the fight, meaning like he did against Eddie Alvarez, he controlled the position. Eddie was never really coming forward. Yeah. Eddie would meet him halfway, but he would never force Conor back. Yeah. Conor was always the one forcing Eddie where he wanted him to be. Conor was setting him up to move towards his left at times. He did all kinds of things to set Eddie up. Nate creates a pressure, same as Tony Ferguson creates pressure. This is why if this was Tony Ferguson fighting Conor, hey, it's different because that pressure Conor has a problem with. If you're able to pressure Conor and make him work past that comfort zone, now you can force him into those situations like Nate did in that third round of his second fight. Nate was lighting him up. A lot of people thought Conor was in deep trouble, and I could see that he was trying to rest. He was trying to grab air. And so he was, he knew that Nate was going to win the round, but he was just like, well, if he's going to win this round, I'm going to try to gain as much air as I can and slow myself down. But that's the style that gives Conor problems. Cowboy, how often is he the guy that is really coming after guys in that pressure form like Nate or a Tony does? He does it differently. You can watch his fight like with, Matt Brown, back and forth. Everything goes a certain way. Leon Edwards, everything goes a certain way, but he's usually not the guy that's setting that pressure. And if he allows Conor to set that pace, Conor can go the 5 rounds easy.
Yeah. Yeah, if he allows Conor to use his footwork and kind of dictate where the fight goes and control the fight, then yeah, I get what you're saying. I understand. Okay, what else? Let's see. Outside of those, I want to see the Grasso and Claudia fight. That's gonna be a good fight. Raquel Pennington,
that's a good fight.
Holmes. That should be a good fight as well.
All right, what do you think about that fight? What do you think? Because they fought once. That was, in fact, Holly Holmes' initiation into the UFC was Raquel Pennington.
Okay,
but the difference is they're both kind of on a downward side compared to where they were then.
Yeah.
It's a matter of who's received the more damage and who has the more skill, and I just don't see that fight. Rocky is tough as hell. I love her. She is she's a ballsy gamer, man. She goes after it.
Yeah.
I just don't think she has a stand-up game, and I just don't see her stand-up game being better than Holly's. I just don't see her winning that fight.
Yeah, her style is that come forward, get after you. It just and Holly's got such. She's like I don't want to compare. I'm gonna kind of compare her to Conor. She's got great footwork, man.
Oh,
She's
she does.
got phenomenal footwork. And
she's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, and
to try to cut her down and make her have to stop is just not easy, man. She is someone. Her movement is frustrating.
When she fought Amanda Nunes, she was hesitant, and I think that's what led to her getting knocked out, because she could tell she was starting to fear the power. There's a couple times she got clipped, and it was like, oh wow, I haven't been hit like that, in a long time, if ever. And you could see I'd never really seen Holly back up the way she had backed, even when she fought Cyborg. I was like, wow.
No, she stood in there with Cyborg.
Yeah, I was like, wow, she
really did.
She's backing up with Amanda. I'm like, this is insane. Yeah. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, she's in trouble. And then everything she did after a couple of those sequences was like, she would go to throw and she'd pull her leg down. She'd go to throw a punch, she'd kind of like hesitate, or she'd flinch, and she'd flinch, and it wasn't the full combination of the power. She was afraid to sit down on our combinations because she didn't want to get knocked out, which, she ended up losing. But I just, what's it called? Raquel Pennington doesn't have that type of power. She doesn't have what Amanda Nunes has in the power. So I think Holly's going to be able to stick and move, use that side kick, use the front of the thigh, and, use her left hand, footwork, make her chase, and just touch her. But we have to always take into consideration Holly Holmes' age. She's getting older, and I'm just simply saying, like, hey, man, like I said, I've been there.
No.
It happens. You don't know when, you don't know how, but outside of Eves, where Eves caught me, I'd never been knocked out. I got dropped by a headbutt with Patricky, and it's like, and then I got hit. It's like, those type of things never before would have ever really bothered me. Like, I've banged my head a bunch of times in training, banged my head a bunch of times in fights, and just like walked right through it. At an age, though, you're just, your head and your brain just don't take the shots like they used to.
Oh, no, that's true. You brought up the whole age thing, and there is that. I agree with you. I think between the ages of 28 to 35, you have your greatest moments, because you're always you have the ability to still get better at those ages. And once you get to 35, you can still fight well. Mm-hmm. You're just not getting better.
No.
You're trying to maintain, and you can do all the work, but you're not going to get better. And then from, somewhere 38 to 40, it starts to really tail off no matter how much work you're doing.
Yep.
And it's, that's just the way it is. Father Time's undefeated. He's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, you just got to start taking on, like for me, I started noticing a difference in my physique. I used to look lean. I always considered myself to look lean throughout my camps and my fights. But I used to be able to have.
We know how you are about how you look.
Yeah, 100%.
We've got that.
When you look,
that's why Dave is right there laughing.
Yeah, he is. He is laughing. Nobody likes people from Scotland, anyways. No, I noticed when I hit 37, even 36, when I fought Nate, my body didn't look as tight and as firm as it had before. And I see a little bit of that in Holly, and she's a fucking animal, man. I've seen some of her workouts. I've seen the way she trains, and I'm like, but I've seen some of her, you start seeing a difference in their skin, you start seeing a difference in their physique, and how it's not as firm, and you don't see the veins where they used to be when they were a little bit younger. And I start just, in my mind, I've seen it, and I just start seeing it. I'm thinking like, man, there's people that I see fight that are getting up in age. And I'm thinking to myself, it's coming, man. It's coming. I don't want to say anything to them, but I feel like it's coming, you know? And I want them to all understand, like, they've done so much already in the sport, the people that I'm thinking of, without throwing them on blast. But you gotta be ready for it. It's got to be one of those things in your mind. You got to be ready to walk away. I think she beats Raquel Pennington. Just with her footwork and her speed. She still has the speed. She still has some pretty good power, and she's got the technique and all the tools to do it. You know, I just start questioning, like, you know, she's had a rough go, a couple fights, and I think that I think she can still do it. I just get concerned. That's all. I get concerned, man. I do. I love the sport, and I care about the fighters. I do. I care about them, and so I hate to see someone like any of them, you know, go through that you've watched for so many years.
If you take a look at the lineup that in the last, let's say 5 years now, that Holly Holm has fought. I mean, she's fought everybody.
Yeah.
She is, you know, she hasn't turned down, you know, Jermaine Durandamy, Ronda Rousey, you know, freaking, you know, Raquel Pennington, Amanda, Cyborg. She didn't turn anyone down. So she has definitely been out there against the very best time after time after time. And that is what fighting in the UFC is so hard.
Yep.
There's just not that break that you can get that, you know, this is going to be an easier fight. Sometimes you need that easier fight.
Yep.
And it's tough when you don't get it.
Well, now that you brought that up, let's go right to Brendan Schaub and Joe Rogan.
I thought you were going to go to Brendan and Joe because of what Joe said to Brendan when he was still fighting.
No, no. I'm going to go to the Brendan and the Joe conversation they had on their last Fight Companion. Great show, by the way, once you get past the conspiracy theories. And
my God.
Yeah, and
I love Eddie.
I couldn't. I don't mind it, actually. I don't mind it.
He cracks me up.
I do agree with Joe, though, when like the four of them are all yelling. It's like screeching to my ears. I'm like, oh God, I can't hear. I like want to. I just want to like just turn it off. But I do. I love listening to all of them because they all kind of they all make some good valid points. You know, believe it or not, like to me, like Brian Callen made a couple good points, and
Brian's smart.
Yeah, smart guy, man. And you can tell he likes the sport. He doesn't always watch it. Can tell by that too.
Yeah.
But you can tell that he likes the sport, and he's got a little bit of knowledge in it all. But look. Brendan talked. Reason why what we're talking about is that he said Lima.
Come on, talk to me.
He said that I know. He said that Lima can't beat Usman, can't beat Covington, and can't beat those guys because he's not in the UFC. Which he's right. He can't beat them because he's not in that organization, so they'll never fight. So he is right about that. But no, I said some things to Brendan on Twitter, and I just said like, well. Brendan is wrong. Brendan is wrong that Lima's not a top guy. Brendan's wrong that he doesn't have that Lima potentially can't beat those guys, and I think he can. I have to agree with Joe. Joe kind of said the same thing. Joe said he could starch him, or he could get taken down and beat the fuck up. Like it could go either way.
Absolutely.
But to touch on what Joe said, and I've said this for years, and I've told you this a couple weeks ago. Is when you're talking about the top 5 guys in the world, we're talking less than probably a 1%.
Oh, not even close to 1%.
Yeah, it's like that's
not even close.
That's all it takes. If one guy comes in and his fucking hair is out of line, that like all of a sudden, you know, like he stubbed his toe on the way to the gym that day or to the fucking arena, dude, he could lose that fight. That's how close everybody is evenly matched up when you get to that top 5 of echelon of guys. And when you get to the point where guys are peaking at certain times. Like it's like a roller coaster like this. And I'll give you
biorhythm.
Yeah, and I'll give you guys someone that the whole world had written off was Robbie Lawler. UFC cut him.
Robbie sucked.
He went to Pride.
Are you kidding? When the
Pride.
UFC cut Robbie, he sucked. That's all I heard.
Yeah. Horrible.
Like,
just, he wasn't what we thought he was going to be, and like just whatever. Now look at Robbie Lawler. Now look at him. I mean, like,
look at the career he had.
He had some great fights in Pride, had some good fights in Elite XC? Was he in Elite XC? And then he came to Strike Force.
Then Strike
Force. He was the Strike Force champion there. Then he came, that was all at 185. He's a 70 pounder.
Yep.
That was all at 185. Then he gets to the UFC, becomes the 175 pound champion, and had some of the best fights, epic fights we've ever seen. And Dave doesn't think much of him because Dave's commented a couple of times about how he's not good. But I'm simply just, he's just garbage, and that like basically like, he's just a brawler, not very good. Like good guys will beat him, anyways. But he starched a bunch of guys. But my point is that guys like him, when Brendan said like, Lima's not fighting all the best guys all the time. I'm telling you right now, when the fight game is about confidence, you can't fight the best guys all the time. And sure, it's
the whole thing.
It's the whole thing.
And it's also when you're fighting the best guys all the time, your career is short.
Yep.
Compared to the guy who's not having to fight the best guys all the time. So, yeah, you can sit there and say, "Oh, yeah, it's great that he's fighting these, top guys one after the other." That's what a champion has to do. A champion doesn't really get a break. Mm-hmm. But if you're not the champion, having to fight murderer's row time after time after time after time, it breaks you down.
Yeah. Because
you only have so many battles in you. And when you're looking at guys, and this is what I loved about Demetrius Johnson, is Demetrius has all these fights because for how long did he go without even being damaged? Mm-hmm. And that's what I loved about watching Demetrius, especially when he was on his run. About the time when he fought Benavidez the second time, and he knocked Benavidez out.
Sacramento.
He had a run from that point that you watched. He didn't get touched, and that allows him to maintain his ability to compete against the next guy. But as soon as you start getting damaged, now it starts going down, and it starts slowing down for you. So, yeah, you can sit there and say, when guys are, in the UFC, they're always going after, the next, big guy, and it's always murderer's row. That's good, and it's bad. Mm-hmm. There's a good side to it if you're the fan, and there's a real bad side to it if you're the fighter.
Well, you can look at it this way, too. You want to say, like, yeah, the champion's got to fight murderer's row, but let's talk Anderson Silva real quick. Let's not deny the fact that, like, Murderer's Row was not Murderer's Row, really, on the guys he was beating. Outside of Rich Franklin, you're going
to get me in trouble with Anderson. Oh, my God, You're bringing up Anderson Silva.
Look, I've always liked him as a fighter. I
loved him.
We talk about the cheating thing as a separate issue. But look, I've always liked him as a fighter. He's always been super talented. There was never a doubt about any of that. He's no different than John Jones. Like, they're fucking extremely talented. I look at the two of them like as if I look at like MVP. Like very good on the feet, very long, lanky, very styles that match, very similar styles. But Anderson didn't fight the best guys all the time, and there's times you're going to have shitty fights against guys. John Jones fought Ova St. Preux. Wasn't a great performance. You know what I mean? Like you have, what's it called? Anderson. He fought Patrick Cote. I would say he probably was he either losing that fight or was a close fight until Patrick Cote hurt his knee. In a really fluke thing. It was just Anderson didn't show up that night. You know what I mean?
He fought James Irvin.
Yeah. Like there's guys, you're just thinking to yourself, like, how did these guys even get to the title? You know what I mean?
And this is not putting Patrick Cote down. He was a good fighter.
Yes, he was.
James Irvin was a good fighter.
Yes.
But if you can't say that, he was a top level fighter.
Travis Lutter.
Yeah.
There was guys, like, you can't say like, UFC has all the best guys in Murderer's Row. But then you can't use the same thing you can't bunch that all together with like the guys that Anderson fought. And it's not going to always be that way. So Lima, sure, we're a smaller promotion. We've got Bellator's a smaller promotion. We don't have as many guys on the roster for them to be a long lasting Murderer's Row. But he just did something to Rory McDonald. I mean, it was a close fight, the first one. The second one, he came back and dominated the fight. And, he's knocked out Korshkov. He's submitted Korshkov. He's done all the things he's supposed to have done. I can't knock him. I'm simply saying, like, you cannot put those guys, you can't say he's not a top tier guy. He may get there and he may knock them out, like Joe was saying, or he may get taken down and just, blasted from the top. You never know. But I'm going to tell you right now, that's what makes it from the top echelon of guys, the top 5 guys. That's what makes it so interesting. I'm a little disappointed that Joe didn't bring up Patricio, because after just seeing what Volkanovski did to Max Holloway and being a shorter, stumpier guy, and I have to agree with you, okay, which I very rarely try to do, okay, Patricio to me has got more power than Volkanovski. Patricio I feel like has the better wrestling than Volkanovski.
Absolutely.
And I would even say maybe potentially even the better submission, better grappling game.
No doubt.
I don't know. I have never seen Volkanovski in person to see is he taller than Patricio or they're the same height.
No, they are very similar.
So that to me,
maybe an inch difference.
Yeah. And here's the other thing: when you have guys like Henry Cejudo training with guys like Patricio, I'm just telling you, guys like Henry Cejudo, they don't try to join with other guys who don't bring their level up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's give and take and everything. Yeah.
But if you're a top level guy, you are training with other guys that bring something to the game.
Yep.
They bring something, and that's why you're training with them. And so
that's
my biggest problem with what Brendan said was, he basically says, if you're not fighting the UFC, you're not, you're just not top talent. And it's like, I don't know how much Brendan truly watches MMA before, but I can rattle off names of people that nobody knows. Mm-hmm. All right. If you're part of North America, you're not going to know him. But, there's a guy named Razov out there. He is a freaking monster as a featherweight.
Tell me where is he from? Russia?
He's from Russia. Yeah. He's from Chechnya. Okay, but he is a stud. Mm-hmm. He's probably, I think, 16-1 now. His one loss was to a wrestler that just held him down. Mm-hmm. But this kid is phenomenal. But and this is the point. This is what people don't get. And I don't blame the UFC. I don't blame Bellator. You can only bring in so many people into your organization that don't speak the language of the vast majority of your fans. Mm-hmm. All right. So, the UFC tries to bring in people that, are good, that, hey, they can talk English. It helps. It helps when someone is a fighter from England and they're good, mm-hmm. because they speak the language of people in North America, that's where the UFC is making their money.
And the
Bellator's
UK.
The same thing. Yeah. And so you can only have so many Russian fighters. Now, guys like Khabib have learned how to speak English, and that's helping not only him, it's helping the UFC.
That is number one bullshit, by the way. Number one bullshit.
But it is so true, because, look, this is a business, and you can't have your lineup full of people that it's hard for you to promote, that cannot help promote the fights because they don't speak the language. And so I understand why, Yusuf Razov is still in Russia and Chechnya fighting, because, that's where he's from. But, man, those guys are out there, and they are so good, Josh. And they're out there and how good they are. And it's like, when you talk about Islam, walking into AKA, who knew about Islam? Russians. Yeah. Guys from Dagestan. That's the only ones that knew about him.
Yep. I believe he's a 5-time Sambo world champion. Like, he's nasty good. And I don't want to, I want to give I'll give a little bit of insight on this. Like, outside of Khabib, Islam looking up to Khabib, stylistically, when those two spar, I got to tell you, that fucking is a pay-per-view headline right there. That fight, I know it'll never ever happen, but I'm saying you guys are not able to watch at home. Like, I see it all the fucking time, and I'm like, and then even when they're trying to be respectful to each other, like, not trying to like make sure no one gets hurt. It's still gunslinging.
And then, well, that's what you're in the gym and you go, all of a sudden you look over and your gloves start coming off and you just become a fan. You start watching.
That's exactly what happens. Like everyone just starts watching. Oh shit! Oh shit! Someone just got a first airline ticket, first class airline ticket. They're throwing each other. I mean, like feet are up in the air. I mean, it's so fun. Not just the two of them, but it's just fun to watch. It's fun to have that group of guys in the ring.
And that's the point. Is there's a lot of those guys out there. Mm-hmm. And I got to work with a lot of them. So and I wasn't even people are like, you're since working with Bellator, that's all you talk about. I'm not talking even about guys from Bellator.
Nope.
I'm talking about there are people. MMA is continuing to grow at a massive rate across the world, and and this is part of the whole thing. When you're looking, it's very hard to compare fighters from the year 2000 to now fighters in the year 2020.
Yep.
They're just better. The training is better. The knowledge is better. The techniques are better. Everything is better. Mm-hmm. It's just fact. I'm sorry. Yeah. So you're going to talk about someone from the past about how good they were. Stuff. Matt Hughes. I love Matt. He was phenomenal as the champion of the welterweight division in the UFC. And man, he could not compete with any of the guys you're talking about in that top level. Nope. It's just he was a different breed compared to what they are now. They're just better now because they know more.
Yeah, the other thing as well is that back then we were really just taking fighters from a couple countries. One, like we had GSP from Canada, who's like pretty much the only fighter. We had like 2 or 3 other guys.
Did Canada have another fighter?
Yeah, they had Mark Hominick. But you had a group of guys that came from.
Come on, Sam Stout, awesome.
Mark Hominick,
Chris
Hordesky. I love Chris. Chris was such a good kid. The baby face,
great guy.
Baby face. And then they had what was the short little good jiu-jitsu guy that they had? He looked like he was almost like Mexican. He almost looked Mexican, but he wasn't. He was like Persian maybe, or what was his name? I can't remember him. Anyways, he was.
Are you talking about Bibiano?
No, Bibiano, no. He was smaller. His first fight, I believe, was GSP.
Oh, you're talking about Ivan Menjivar.
Yes, gosh, man, I loved watching him fight. It was a small little ball of muscle. Just, anyways, there was a ton of guys.
Ivan was talented.
Yes, he was. And then, but then so you had a group of guys from Canada, had a group of guys that finally came in from the UK, which was Biz Bing and some other guys, Dan Hardy and those guys. Then you had some guys from Brazil, and you had we never really had a lot of guys that came from Japan until the Fold of Pride. Like none of the guys really came from Japan. Yeah. And then, there was never any guys from China, never any guys from Korea, never any guys from Russia. There was just markets.
A couple. There was Amar Suluev,
yes.
And what was the other guy? I want to say it started with an S too.
The guy with the blonde hair. Suluev was the shorter guy that fought Chuck Liddell, and then Trevor Prangley fought the other one 3 times.
Yeah, and I can't think of his. I want to Semenoff.
Semenoff. It is Semenoff. Yeah, Semenoff. Trevor fought him 3 times. That was so funny, man. Yeah, they had we had a couple guys from Russia, Suluev and Semenoff. Those were the only 2 guys I recall ever coming from Russia at the time.
Yeah.
But the market.
And then Arlovsky.
Yeah, Arlovsky. Then the market but he's from Belarus, White Russia. Yes. He's from White Russia. But they just had a different market. We hadn't got into those markets yet, where a lot of the younger, talented guys, like from Russia, had been training Sambo since the time they were 4 and 5 years old. And so Brazil, same thing. We didn't get a lot of guys from Brazil. We had, the top guys that the Gracie family had kind of talked about, people there was buzz about, but we didn't get the deep guys from the favelas. We didn't get those guys, a lot of them, because no one wanted to help push those guys or get those guys to the next level. Now that's changing. There's different ways, like from the Contender Series to, to fight for Dana White, and now Bellator holding like tryouts. We're finding guys. I mean, just think about that little tiny tryout we did in Hawaii. We found like 10 or 11 guys, and you're finding guys that you don't think are going to be good, but they're there. They're out there. They're good guys out there that no one's even talked to. These guys are like musicians that don't know how to get their name into the bigger promotions. They're just,
it's like American Idol. Did American Idol create Carrie Underwood? Well, Yeah, in a way, but she was always that good.
Yeah.
You know, it just she didn't have the ability to get out there and have people see her, which is what, you know, fighting for the UFC or fighting for Bellator does for you. If you get to that level, you get seen and then people start talking about you. But, you know, the whole thing, and this is what going back on it, anytime someone says that the UFC has all the top fighters and nobody else outside of them is any good, you got to look and say, well, you're just not part of the sport.
Well, that can't be true.
And I know Brendan is part of the sport, but he's not paying attention to the sport.
That can't be true. They traded away Demetrius Johnson, who's to me probably considered he's in that GOAT conversation. You know, for someone who's only
no doubt about it.
He's in the GOAT conversation, and you can't trade away one of the best guys ever, and say you have all the best guys. You know, and that was an issue. And then they got Ben Askren for it in the trade or the deal, whatever. But it just.
But you know, Ben was. And no disrespect to Ben.
And I think Ben knows that.
Ben was a phenomenal, you know, incredible wrestler, made a great career out of MMA. But by the time he went to the UFC, he was older. He was much slower. We all knew that he had a bad hip that he needed surgery on, that, you know, he was just waiting, you know, till the end of his career trying to get past it. He couldn't run anymore. So, you know, and I'm not saying they got the least of the deal, but they got the least of the deal. But
they actually got the better of the deal that made their promotion look better.
Yeah.
You know, when you take a look at it and I think had they got the Ben Askren from the beginning, who knows? That was 10 years ago. You don't know what that Ben would have had.
You know, this is where people forget. They should have gotten Ben back then.
Yeah, they should have.
Because Bjorn Rebney was done with Ben because he wasn't the exciting fighter that Bjorn Rebney wanted out of Bellator. And he was the champion. He was beating everybody because he was a single style guy that was so dominant in that style that he could make the fight his way. And Bjorn Rebney lets him go, won't re-sign him. And then Dana came out saying, oh, he hasn't fought anybody. And it was like, man, just wrong. Now, I know I'm not blaming Dana completely because Ben said a lot of things about Dana, and I can understand why Dana said, oh, fuck you.
Yeah, I know.
But, you know, it was too bad that he didn't go there when he was still able to really compete at a top level for him. You know, he had his years in one, and those were all good, and he won all those fights, but time eventually, you know, he was 35 or 36 when he first went to the UFC. And as you were saying,
that's that
starting
age.
to tail off.
Yeah, at 36, I said, I noticed a physical difference in my body during that time. I mean, Ben was never fucking a rock star like when it came to muscles, but you know, but you know, you could go and take a look at. All right, let's talk about George Masvidal. All right, George Masvidal fought in Bellator, got beat in Bellator, by Toby
fought
Amada.
In Strikeforce.
Yeah. Who else did he
fought in Strikeforce?
He lost to Daly in Bellator also, didn't he?
No.
He fought.
I think George is only. I think he only fought twice in Bellator. I could be wrong, but I know he won one and he
lost to Toby Amada with that.
He lost on that inverted triangle. It can happen, you know.
Yeah.
But he you know, fought in Strikeforce, won some, lost some, lost to Gill in a championship fight. But everyone, you know, is talking about how wonderful George is now, and they're right, he is. And they're forgetting all of this time when he was fighting in Bellator, fighting in Strikeforce, fighting around the world, and everyone said he was trash. No, he was not trash then, and he's not trash now. He's a great fighter. Same as Anthony Smith.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what Anthony Smith is rated in the UFC, but in the lightweight, he's got to be, 3 or 4. Okay, Anthony Smith had, you know, a career of fighting in small shows, fought in Bellator a couple of times. He won, you know, but he fought in Strikeforce. I did his fight against, you know, Roger Gracie. You know, he got beat. And so it can happen. Just because, you know, you're not fighting in a certain promotion doesn't mean that you're a crap fighter, and it doesn't mean that you won't become that great fighter, or that, you know, when you finally get there, you're actually on the downside of your career too, and that's what happened with Ben.
Yeah, guys go up and down, and they'll peak. Like some guys will rejuvenate their career. Like, you know, let me, like you said, Masvidal. Masvidal's a perfect example, right? Like, he didn't have a good stint in Bellator. I thought he looked phenomenal in Strikeforce. I actually was like one of those guys. I was supposed to fight him 4 or 5 times. Something else another fight was always presented. It was like, hey, you want to fight George? And I was like, I agreed to fight him a couple times. I know he agreed to fight me because we had talked about it a bunch of times. But for some reason, the promotion didn't put the two of us together. Bottom line is, I mean, that guy's always been fucking good. He's always been good. And people didn't realize, I think, until they started watching him wrestle and do more stuff with Yoel Romero, how fucking good his wrestling was. But his wrestling's always been good. His wrestling has always been good from back in the Strikeforce days. I remember watching, like, dude, people couldn't take him down. People couldn't hold him down. Like, he was bouncing around on one foot like BJ Penn, just fucking stuffing people's takedowns. And then on top of that, he's
athletic.
His boxing was good. I mean, he was always an extremely talented guy. A guy that, man, I always knew if I had to fight, I was like, oh, this is going to be a rough one. It's like one of those kind of guys. You just knew. He was just a gritty dog, like junkyard dog type fighter. But always respectful, always a nice guy. Loved being around the guy. Even just seeing him in the hallway. Phenomenal, man. Just a phenomenal fighter. When he got to the UFC, it was icing on the cake. He had his ups and downs, but then he found his groove. And I think he, like in Strikeforce, he was potentially killing himself to make 55 because he's a tall guy.
Yeah.
He's a big guy.
I had talked to him about that back then. I said, man, you're losing too much weight.
Yeah.
See, going back to the weight thing. I'm always on the weight thing. But it was true. And when I talked to him, it was about, hey, you're not beating people on being the bigger, stronger guy. You're beating people on having better technique and out technically boxing people.
Yeah.
Don't worry about being the bigger, stronger guy. You're going to be the faster guy if you go to 170. That's going to be your weight class. And eventually he went up there, and I was glad to see that he did, and he's had great success. His last 3 fights have been phenomenal. He deserves everything that's coming his way.
Yeah.
But, he didn't always fight in the UFC.
Yeah.
He fought a lot of other places.
For those of you that don't understand how good his boxing and kickboxing is, and don't just go back to what you just saw, I'll tell you, if you guys want to see how good he was back then, go look at his fight with KJ Noons. I had never seen somebody dismantle KJ Noons the way he did. That was
who was considered a good boxer.
Considered a good boxer, a good kickboxer. Like he has good, and he also had beat Nick, right?
Yeah,
the cut. It was like I know it was stopped by a cut or whatever, but it was still
multiple cuts. He tore Nick's face up.
Yeah, he tore his Nick. So he ended up beating Nick, but George did basically what KJ did to Nick's face. George did that to his face. I mean, it was nasty, and he did it without taking any shots in that fight. I mean,
George is good.
He's fucking nasty good back then. He just found his groove, I think, now, and he's extremely comfortable with himself. And guys hit their stride depending on who they're beating and who they're beating and who motivates them. I've said this for years. Like, I don't want to look back on my career and be like, fuck, man, what if? But there are things that I was really upset about when the UFC was bought by Strikeforce, or the Strikeforce was bought by the UFC.
I was going to say, stop that, reverse it.
So when the UFC bought Strikeforce, I was mad that I never got to fight Donald Cerrone. I was mad I never got to fight Anthony Pettis because those are guys that all people talked about was like, oh, I can't wait to watch you fight these guys. Those are 2 guys that, like, that's all I wanted to do was fight them. And of course I wanted to fight Gil again because Gil and I had unsettled business after our last fight. But that whole thing was like, there was guys that I had in mind that never came about. George seems like he got the opportunity to fight the guys that he knew he could beat, or that he knew that stylistically motivated him. And I think when you get a motivated fighter to fight somebody that they want to fight, you're going to get the best fight out of them that you could potentially get ever in their lives. And he's had that opportunity. And when he did what he did to Darren Till, it was like, that guy motivates me. I'm ready to go. That was absolutely phenomenal. And then when he turned around, he did what he did to Ben Askren. It was like, I'm gonna knock this guy out. Whatever it was, 2 biscuits and a soda, whatever the fuck. But it was fucking awesome.
A 3-piece and a soda.
3-piece, whatever,
a 3-piece, baby.
It was, and I'm a Ben fan because to know what Ben and the whole Dana thing, and I support all the fighters that go from one promotion to the next promotion, because living your life outside the UFC is never easy. And I did it for half my career. It's hard, man. It's hard for these guys to justify what they're doing and why they're doing it. And Ben, I became a fan of Ben because of that situation. He went to Bellator, went to one, became champion in both places. Not a lot of people can say they did that. And then he came to the UFC towards the end of his career. But the bottom line is I support guys that go to other organizations because it's hard to live your life outside that organization because you're going to hear guys like Brendan Schaub continue to say things that he did. And I'm a huge Brendan fan. And he's actually going to be in San Jose this weekend. I love Brendan, man. And I give Brendan a lot of credit for me wanting to do podcasts because when I went and did his show, I was like, fuck, this is awesome. This is dope. Small little tiny room. Great conversation. I love like the way we're talking now. I've always loved talking fighting. That's why when you and I do events together, you and I just sit at dinner table just talking.
That's all we do.
Everyone just gets up and leaves, and we're just still sitting there talking fights. And so it's hard as a fighter outside the UFC to justify what they're doing with their life and their career when people continue to say things like Brendan did, and that bothers me. And that's why I wanted to bring this up today.
Yeah. Well, it does. It bothers. You got to look at it like this. I look at it like Twitter or Instagram.
Are you
or
on
any
there?
of the social media things, right?
75 years old, got a Twitter handle.
75-year-old guy on Twitter. But you know the people that'll sit there and you'll say so, and they'll just try to rip you apart. You know, you're an idiot. You don't know nothing.
Oh man.
You know, and I tell guys all the time, hey, if you're worried about what that person has to say to you and that's going to bother you, you got bigger problems. Okay. If you're a fighter outside of the UFC, you've got to understand that the hardcore fans are going to know if you're a good fighter or not. It's the casual fans that they're only going to associate, oh, do you fight in the UFC? And if you don't, then you're not that good. The real question is, why are you fighting?
Yeah.
Why? You know, are you fighting because I want to wear this shirt that says UFC on it that makes me feel good? Okay. Or are you fighting to pay bills, to set yourself up for the future? You know, I don't care who you're fighting for. Mm-hmm. I care that you are making the most that you can make off of the talent that you have and that you're performing at the best you can, getting that money and doing smart things with it. If you're doing those things, you're a winner. Don't worry about what anyone says and just keep walking your path.
Yeah. No, I agree. Here's the thing. With Brendan, though, it just, I want to say this. It kind of cut me deep, Shrek. It cut me real deep. Like it was one of those things because he has a.
You thought you were making waffles.
No, he has a platform though that a casual fan doesn't have, or even a hardcore fan has. He has a platform, and when things like that are said, it just. And I'm not just saying it because it's a Bellator guy. I'm saying it because Demetrius Johnson's over in one. Probably doesn't give a fuck whether he's justified. People know that he's one of the best.
No.
The casual fan doesn't know that he's one of the best, though. And for him, for Brendan to have the platform he has, especially to say it on Joe's show, that bugged me a little bit. I was like, man, this is not what it's supposed to be about. We're supposed to be pumping the fact that these guys and the athletes are the best. Like if someone deserves to be considered the best, have them in the conversation. Let's start talking about dialogue and start creating dialogue basically around, hey, why is that promotion's number one guy not fighting this promotion's number one guy?
There you go.
Why are we not seeing who the best guys? We've been talking about this for boxing for years. Now we're finally getting to see some of these things happen, and everyone's in love with it. Why are we not talking about it with MMA? And when things like that are said, though, and I'm like I said, I'm a fan. Brendan's like I look at him like he's one of my boys. I enjoy being around him. Great conversation. We've had good talks about the sport itself. We did not agreed, on a lot of things. I'm a big Khabib fan. I'm also a Conor fan, but he was riding on Conor before that Khabib fight. And I let him know exactly what was going to happen, and it turned out to be exactly what was going to happen. I just feel like with that platform you have, you got to be careful what you say, because these other guys, they're not in the UFC, man, and they deserved the same notoriety that all the other athletes are getting, even because they're extremely fucking good. Look at Julia Budd. Okay, she may go out next week and knock on wood. She has a great performance, but she may go out there next week and get starch. She may go out there too and starch Cyborg. Then what are we gonna say? Her only 2 losses are to Ronda Rousey when she really wasn't. She was still young, and then when she lost to Amanda Nunes. Like those are her only 2 losses.
Well, both of those was early in her career.
Yeah, early in her career. She's a different fighter now. Now with her, it's never been her talent. It's always been her mental. Does she believe she belongs in there? And we're going to see it next week if she believes that
it is the question.
That she could be in there with Cyborg next week.
If mentally she is on her game, believing in herself, it's going to be a tough fight. It's going to be she has all the skill necessary to beat Cyborg. If she doesn't have that true belief in herself, it won't happen for her.
Yep.
So she's, it is the real question, and we're gonna see.
But here's the thing though. That's every fighter. If you don't fucking believe in yourself, you'll never be the best. You'll never think that you can be the best.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, but I think if she goes out there and starches her, and Julia Budd starches Cyborg, then we're all going to be saying, like, is she considered one of the best now? Are we going to give her that platform to say? I want to hear people say that on their platforms. Like, let's not beat around the bush. Lima deserves to be there. Patricio deserves to be there. Fuck, how could you not say Gegard Mousasi doesn't belong to be there? Like, that's the thing. The guy's fought at heavyweights, fought at 205, he's fought at 185. Like, he's fucking fought everywhere and beat all these guys. How are you going to tell me he doesn't deserve to be there? Like, to me, Lovato Jr., I think he deserves to be there, but stylistically, he doesn't match up well with some guys. If he's able to take Israel down, I think he could beat him.
Oh, done.
I think he beats him. But can he get him down? That's the thing.
I agree.
And if he can't get him down, he's getting starched. I mean, just my personal.
But it's the same thing with both of them. Mm-hmm. Israel. I'm not saying he doesn't have a ground game, but trust me, it doesn't match up to Lovato's. Not even close. And his stand-up game is unbelievable.
Oh, nasty.
It is so good. So, you're taking, that fight, even though you look at it and this is 2020, you're going back in time of almost
UFC 1.
Not quite, well, not UFC 1, but it is that stylistically striker versus grappler. If the grappler gets the striker down, the striker is in deep trouble. If the grappler can't get that striker down, the grappler is in deep trouble. Yeah. But they're both unbelievable in what they do. What skill set brought them to the dance? They are just almost head and shoulders above everyone in that weight class.
But I think in saying what Brendan said, though, you have to still take into accountability that styles make matchups. So to me, Gegard can go back to the UFC, or he can go to Pride, or he can stay where he's at, and the guys he's going to be a style nightmare for fucking almost anyone, because he's good on the ground, he's good on top, he's good on bottom. And we saw that with Lovato Jr. He was able to get out of some tight positions. He was able to also put Lovato Jr. in some nasty positions as well on the ground. I mean, at the end of the 3rd round, I thought for sure the fight was potentially going to get stopped.
I thought that fight had turned the corner. I thought Lovato won the first 2 rounds, and that 3rd round happened. I went, uh-oh.
Trouble.
Man, Gegard has got him, and he is in trouble now. And then the 4th round, he took more.
Yep.
And it's...
Came down to the 5th round.
Yeah, and hats off to a guy that proved he's got championship medal in Lovato, who said, I have to get this takedown, and did it. And that's the same thing that he could do if he fought Israel Adesanya, possibly, or Israel could starch him in the stand-up. You don't know.
And look, for everyone listening at home, I want you guys to understand, when we talk about our guys, and I'm saying Bellator guys, and I'm saying like ONE FC guys, I'm simply saying let's have the conversation about these guys. Certain guys are as good as the champions over there, and as good as the top 5 guys. Now, look, styles make matchups, and John said this a bunch of times. I could take a guy that could... I can't take a guy that can beat Khabib, but I could take a guy that the other guys, and I could match Bellator guys to beat the UFC guys, and I could take it the other way around and say, hey, these UFC guys, if this guy fought this guy, he'd fucking start him, and this guy fought this guy, UFC guy would win. It has to do with styles make matchups. But look, let's just have the conversation. Patricio versus Volkanovski makes for a very fucking good fight. Both really very small guys. Good. Both with good power.
It would be so good. Someone's going to sleep.
Just for a phenomenal fight. That would be a great fight. I would love to watch that fight.
And that's a fight that should happen based upon the sport of MMA is about the fighters. It's not about the promotion.
Yep.
The promotion is there to promote the fighters and put on these fights. It is about putting the best fighters you can against each other to see when you take this guy against this guy, who's the one that's going to come out on top. And, because one comes out on top, one time doesn't mean that he could do it the second time.
Yeah. Yeah, no. There's fights in there that I would like to see. Who at 135 would you like to see from Bellator in UFC? 130. I mean, like Demetrius Johnson, I know is at 25, but I'd like to see him do a 35 stint at some point.
If you're going to say someone from Bellator to go to the UFC?
Yeah. No, like if we're going to have them match up. Like guys from 135, because the 135-pound division in Bellator, 135-pound division in UFC.
Man, I would love to see. There's a couple. I'd really love to see Dominic Cruz against. There's a couple of guys I'd like to see him, but I'd like to see that stylistically, that matchup between him and a guy like Patchy Mix. That would be fun to watch. I would love to see Juan Archuleta against someone like, let's say, Peter Yan. That would be a tough fight for Archuleta, I think.
Yeah.
But if he could utilize the way he does things at times with his wrestling and keep Peter Yan uncomfortable and a little off balance, he's got a chance. But Peter Yan, I think, is just phenomenal right now.
Yeah.
And a tough matchup there. There's so many good matchups you could make, but the problem is we got to get them to make them.
Yeah. But to go back to Brendan, these are things that we should be talking about.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was a little bit of a discredit to the athletes themselves. And
I think Brendan is, when Brendan talks the way he's talking, making that blanket statement, painting, if you don't fight in the UFC, you're nothing. He's setting the sport backwards because he does have influence. This is, when I talk about, and I don't know how many times I've said, I love Joe, but Joe sometimes says things without, he's wanting to, make something better. Officiating. He always wants it to get better, but sometimes he paints it with such a broad stroke because he doesn't like the outcome of a fight. And he'll say, we need to get rid of all the judges. It's like, come on, man. You just slammed everybody that has put a lot of hard work into being good at what they do. All right? If you have an idea of what can be done to make the situation better, great. Let's say it. But when you just blast an entire world of fighters saying you're not good if you're not fighting in this organization, you're misinforming everyone. And you have a big microphone. You have a big platform. Brendan's got a lot of people that listen to him that when he says it, they believe it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was, like I said, I'm a big fan of Brendan. And like I said, I've been on his show a couple times. And the content is always great. The conversation's always great. Everything's always great. So it just threw me off guard to hear him say that about Lima, given the fact that Roy left is like a top 5 guy there, top 5, top 6, I think at the time, and his losses were to Lawler and to Stephen Thompson. It's like, Lawler was the champion and Stephen Thompson was number 2 or 3 at the time or something like that, or somewhere in that mix. It bugged, and then he comes, and then Lima beats him, loses him the first time, comes back, beats him handily the second time. It bugged me. It just bugged me. Not just because he's a Bellator guy, but just it bugs me, like you said, the blanket statement of like if you're not in the UFC. And I want more. I want to see more out of people that have the platforms like us to talk about. Let's get these promotions to start getting these top guys to potentially doing a show together of like, hey, I don't have to have my champion fight you. Let's have my number 4 guy fight your number 6 guy. Or, let's put the best matchups together for the fans. Let's make this happen. Champion versus champion, I don't care if we see that. But let me see these guys fight that are good fights. There was a fight I was talking about the other day that I'm surprised hasn't come up yet. I want to see Ryan Hall and Cron Gracie. Why not see that? I know they're in the same organization, but they're in the same weight class. I want to say Cron just fought Cub, lost, but why not? Why not? These two guys, I would love to see that fucking fight. Why is no one buzzing about that fight at all? Because
especially since everyone seems to have a problem fighting Ryan Hall. I don't get it.
Well, I just saw Kenny.
Why you wouldn't put that?
I just saw Kenny Florian did a tweet like, "Hey, Ryan Hall's ready. Back when I used to fight, the best guys used to want to fight the best guys," and I'm thinking to myself, why not? Let's see Cron versus Ryan Hall. That to me is one of those fights that I'm surprised that hasn't been talked about, or even like I haven't heard any buzz about potentially that fight happening on social media at all. That's a fight that I'm here to start the buzz, guys. That's what I'm here to do.
That's a good, but you're talking about at 145 pounds.
Yes,
non-championship fight really doesn't. I would love to see that fight.
That'd be fucking awesome.
Yeah, it would be awesome.
All right, let's get your take. Who takes it?
Cron.
Really?
Yep.
Really? Can you get it?
You could. People talk all they want, and I love Ryan. I think he is fun to watch. I love his attitude towards fighting. I love how much he goes about trying to always improve, and his ground is phenomenal. It's just not the ground that he can do the same what he does well.
Yeah.
He cannot do it against Cron.
I was supposed to fight Cron in Dream. I believe it was Dream at the time, and for their New Year's Eve show, and then Hickson shut it down. He's like, "No, too much experience." But at the time, I think it was only like it was 2-second fight or something like that.
Yeah, you're way bigger than Cron too.
Oh, I've never met him in person, but he seems like a really cool guy. Like I've watched some of his interviews, and I liked when he did his open workout. I was like, this is different. This is cool. This is who you are, and this is what people want to get to know. For me as a fan of the sport and fan of fighters, I want to get to know them and what they do. Don't just go out there and show a front. Just what would you normally do? So I was cool to see him do the things that he did. That's great. Like when I watch Karate Hottie, when she does the whole like kick in front of her husband thing, that was pretty fucking dope. I'm sorry, man. I was like, it's good. I was glued to the TV like, this is pretty fucking cool. I was like, so.
I love the fact when Juan Archuleta came out with his son at his open workout, and he's doing stuff with his son there. I love the fact when Josh Barnett is at his open workout, he's doing pro wrestling.
That's awesome.
Come on, it's fun. You got to have fun with life, and that's what those guys are doing, and that's what this is all about. It's about having fun.
You brought up Juan and his son, and I was thinking the same thing. DC had his son introduce him. I think.
I love that.
That was fucking awesome.
He
was all nervous. He was like shit.
Dude.
But that was great, man. I love what Max does with his son and the dancing.
Max with Minnie Blessed is just beautiful.
I think he's the one that led the way for bringing their kids more to the forefront. You hear like people interviewed Nate about him and his new kid, and he's just like, no, I don't bring my kid to the fight. I'm not bringing my kid up in the cage. He's like, I'm not into that. And everyone to each their own. But I'm saying with Max though, Max brings, Max brought his son out, and I think it's just opened up, everyone else to like, hey, you know what? My kids are part of my life. My kids are I want them to see my journey, and I think it's been amazing to see the progression of, I think what Max kind of opened the door to with these other guys doing now. It's pretty cool.
That's great. Cool. Hey, question. What do you think about the $80 million that Conor is going to make for this fight, though, that we just talked about?
Whoa.
$80 million he's getting paid.
Shut up.
That's what he said.
Is he?
Come on.
Is he? Do you think he is? Is?
No. But I know he's making more than what certain people put out there.
Well, here's the thing. How much is Monster paying him? They're going to probably have to step up to pay him more than what he would normally get if he was just the champion. Let's be real. Or he's going to say, fuck you, I'm not going to wear your shit. Is he?
Question.
Yeah.
He's not the champion.
Oh, you're right. No, but you're right. So then he would only make what? I don't even know what those guys, like as far as, the Monster stuff goes. But like, they're going to have to pay him pretty well.
You could put all of his sponsors together. He's not going to make $80 million on this fight.
You don't think so?
Okay.
Well, give me an
take
idea.
a look at it.
Okay.
Well, no, just take a look at it and say, all right, you can go off of what the average, pay-per-view points deal was for people. And I know Conor's in a completely different realm than that. But even if, think about this, if he was getting 50% of that pay-per-view, take, and they did 3 million buys, okay, which they're not going to do. Okay, they're not going to get 3 million buys.
Do they break a million? Do they break a million?
I honestly think that they do break a million. I think he'll be right at somewhere in the $1 million to $1.2 million.
Does he get $5 a buy, do you think?
Oh, he gets more than that.
He gets more than that? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want you to tell me if you know.
But think about it. Even if he got, I think it's now it's up to $65.
Yeah,
$64.99, $95.
65. They just upped it. Yeah.
Okay, so $65. So let's say that he got the 30. He gets $32. We'll say he gets half at $3 million. That's not going to make $80 million.
Do you think maybe he could have negotiated a deal with ESPN for a flat fee?
Oh, I think he
guaranteeing
definitely,
them a certain amount of fights, maybe for the year or two.
How is he gonna negotiate outside with the people that have a deal with the promotion that he works for?
Yeah, that's true. I guess because ESPN's paying the bill. I mean, right?
Well, yeah, they're paying the bill, but all they got to say is we have a deal with
UFC.
them.
Yeah, I can't think of how. I mean, unless there's something to do with
his whiskey on the mat as well. Does he get money?
Yeah, there may. I don't know. But no, he'd have to pay to put proper whiskey on.
I know.
Maybe he got it for free, but they're not going to pay.
I know he's going to make a lot more than what they came out and said, because I think they came out saying he's going to make $5 million. He's going to make more than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Back a long time ago, I got in trouble. In fact, I closed down a podcast because of Dana saying, "Hey, what are you doing?"
I heard you had a pretty good following too on that podcast.
Yeah, I had a pretty good following on that podcast. But it was, I made the statement that, at the time, long ago, when the Fertittas first bought the UFC, I had a conversation with Lorenzo when we were at the Marquettis Arena, which is in the Trump Taj Mahal. And this is before the first fight that they ever put on, which was UFC 30, and it was Tito Ortiz against Evan Tanner was the main event. And Lorenzo, sitting there talking to me, he told me that I want to be the first promoter to pay an MMA fighter more, $1 million. And I kind of told him, I said, well, it's already been done, just so you know. And that was in Pride, and Hickson was the guy that actually made over that. And I said, but I think that's fantastic, right? And then years later, Lorenzo and I are in the back in the MGM Grand, and he's talking to me, and he said, you remember when we had that conversation? I talked about paying a fighter $1 million. I said, absolutely, I remember. And he said, I'm guaranteeing a guy over $10 million, and I'm having a hard time signing him, and that was Conor. So if Conor was making that $10 million back then, trust me, he's making at least that now. So, but Dana can get mad at me for putting that out there, but everyone knows he's gonna make good money. Is he gonna make $80 million? He's not gonna make $80 million.
You think think 40 or 50?
No, it's not gonna be. Look, if he makes 20, congratulations, God bless you. I love it. The fact that you are able to elevate yourself to that status of making that kind of money for a fight. I'm not the guy that sits there and boo-hoos for any promotion that has to pay a fighter. I don't. But there comes a point where I say, yeah, that's fair. And if you're making $20 million for a fight against Cowboy Cerrone, that's fair.
That is fair.
I'm all for it.
Like if they were to say that he was making $20 million to fight Khabib again, I'd say it's fair, but I'd like to see it.
Yep.
I'd like to see it be a little bit more, because
That'd
you're
be great.
taking the two of the best guys in the world, and we're getting to see the two of the best guys in the world fight. And I think it's fair that that they should be getting paid in the upper echelon of fighters. Now, I think when I also take into consideration is why are we not seeing the paydays that boxing is seeing? That's what I want to know. Can you answer that?
Oh, you are. Yeah, come on, hold on. See, this is where people get it wrong. You know, I was an official within boxing, and all I kept hearing all the time with boxers make way more money. Bullshit. Only a couple.
Yes.
Only a couple boxers.
And they have less shows every year, by the way.
Yeah. All right. The Floyd Mayweathers, the Manny Pacquiaos, they made huge money. But even, you go into the heavyweights, Tyson made his money at a certain time, but, take a look at the money that he was making for fights. Comparatively, Conor's making that kind of money.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, yes, you have a couple of boxers, but overall, boxers don't make as much as MMA fighters.
No.
I'm just telling you straight out. The average boxer makes less than the guy that's fighting in the UFC or the guy that's contracted to Bellator. Boxers making far less.
Yep.
Only when you reach that championship level and you are the guy that accelerates like the Pacquiao or the Mayweather. No, you're not making more.
I want to remind people that outside of Mayweather, like a lot of the other guys that are making that kind of money, they come from another country. And so when they come from another country, they have a whole country that's backing them that buys the pay-per-views or that basically comes to the gates, whatever it is. Like you see Conor, he comes, fucking all of Dublin's in fucking MGM Grand, or the T-Mobile Arena.
And that's part of what you got to think about is this. And I'm not sure when tickets went on sale, but I know 246 sold out fast. Okay, that's this show coming up.
Yep.
And I think the gate's going to be somewhere around the 10 million because they can take the UFC takes and makes their price point for each ticket, in different markets at different levels based upon who's fighting. And they know that they can bump those tickets up for Conor. They know a lot of his countrymen will still come and support that fight and want to be at that fight, and they'll pay that, extended ticket price because it's more.
Yep.
But that's part of promoting, and that's what they can do, and that's how Conor does get that more money, and that's why he deserves the more money.
Yep.
He's bringing those kind of numbers.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys have never been to like a Manny Pacquiao fight, it's fucking insane with how many Filipino people are there.
It's the Philippines.
It's the Philippines. It's basically the whole fucking island is in the T-Mobile Arena or the MGM or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like it's amazing. And like, and I even use guys like Michael Bisping and Dan Hardy and those guys every time they'd fight. GSP, like when he fought at what was Rogers Arena? Is it Rogers Arena?
No, you go to the Bell Center in Montreal,
Okay.
man.
So
man, he would sell that thing out in a day. Boom, gone.
Was it 54,000 there?
Oh no, you're talking about that's the Rogers Arena that was in Toronto.
Okay, he fought there,
Yeah.
and I believe he sold it out.
Fought there, 55,000. Yeah.
Was that against Koscheck?
That was against. I'm going brain dead. I'm looking at his face right now. I can't believe I can't say it. It wasn't against.
It wasn't.
Koscheck.
He fought Koss in Canada, though, I believe.
Yeah, he did fight Cos. He fought him at the Bell Center.
Gosh.
But he fought who's part of the Scrap Pack?
Oh, Nick Diaz.
No.
Jake Shields.
Jake Shields. God,
okay.
I kept on wanting to say Jay. I don't know why. Jake Shields was who he fought in Toronto.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. He sold
Man,
that.
That's 75 years. You see what it's doing to my memory now? Damn.
Yeah. You used to be sharp as a whip, buddy.
Yeah, it used to be.
Man. Yeah. Then he sold that arena out as well. But my point is that normally when they can stake claim from somebody from another country, the fans come out, especially when it's a new market they haven't been to yet or they're trying to build up into, like Khabib right now. I'm telling you right now, they're going to have to build a fucking arena big enough for him to have a show there, like in Russia. There's just not going to be a fucking arena there big enough for him. You know what I mean? Like, it's insane to think what the numbers he did with Conor, 2.4 million views. Buys or whatever for their pay-per-view, and everyone was hemming and hawing about the pay-per-view market was dead at that time, which I was one of them, by the way. And and it's.
Are you saying you were wrong?
No, I was very wrong. I honestly didn't think they'd break 1.6. I thought they'd do 1.5. I thought they would do 1.5. I didn't think they'd do 1-6. This is one of the conversations that Brendan Schaub and I had, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm thinking like they'll beat the second Nate and Conor, which was I think 1-6-7 or something like that, or 1-6-8."
Yeah.
They fucking blew it out of the water.
Yeah. I said they would do over 2. I didn't think they'd do 2-4.
Wow.
I thought they'll do about 2, and look, that's huge numbers. But that was, again, that's what Conor kind of brings, because they had enough to go on with all of the instigating and stuff that he did, and I at the time I thought he crossed the line.
Yeah.
In a lot of what he did, but that brought people's interest in that fight out, and that's why so many people bought it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. I mean, like, look, you can hate him or love him, but one thing he knows how to do is he knows how to sell a fight.
Hell yes, he does.
The same thing that can be said for Mayweather. I think outside of Mayweather's, I can't think of another like top American fighter. I mean, you have Mike Tyson, but a top American fighter to make the money that he has made. All people want to do is see him get knocked the fuck out. That's all they care about. They only want to see him lose. They buy tickets to hopefully see him lose. That's crazy.
Yeah, but that was the blueprint that Muhammad Ali created.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't care if you want me to win. I don't care if you want me to lose. I just care that you buy it and you watch. And if you want to see me lose, good. I'll prove you wrong.
But Ali was likable, though. Mayweather's not likable at all. Ali was likable, in a fun, kind of loving way. You've seen him on TV, like talking with, like hyping up kids and getting them all amped up, and like talking with Howard Cosell. All these, like, just different people, from young kids to older people. Just the way he carried himself, he was likable. I can see why people didn't like him also, his antics when it came to it, but I could also see like people liked him because of who he was outside of the ring as well. Mayweather doesn't have any of that, none of it. And I think he gives zero shits about it also.
I absolutely gives zero shit.
It is what it is, man. When you're as good as he is at boxing, you don't give a fuck.
Well, supposedly he's going to fight again. He's going to fight for Dana, so we'll see.
I guess we'll see, man. I don't think I agree with what you had said something about it potentially being like what he did in Japan. What was it called?
Exhibition.
An exhibition, yeah. See,
yep.
I'm not even 75 years old and I can't use my brain. Like,
see,
memory loss. There was something else I wanted to talk about.
Talk to me, baby. Come on.
Kevin Lee and Charles Oliveira was announced. Was it Charles Oliveira?
Yeah.
Or was it
Brasilia?
Yeah.
No, it's Charles Oliveira.
Charles Oliveira. That should be a really good fight.
That is a good fight. I honestly think Kevin Lee, if he fights just adequately smart, is too physically strong, too physically gifted for Oliveira in that fight.
Just the submissions, man.
Yeah, that is Dos Bronx. He's got game, man, and he can pull submissions out from a lot of positions. He's done some great things, but this is where I say if Kevin at least fights halfway smart, if Kevin uses his ability, he's got great wrestling. He's very hard to take down. He can maintain fighting in a stand-up position all he wants and just start systematically breaking him down. That's Kevin Lee's fight.
Yeah, I think Kevin Lee's. It depends on if this is a 5-round fight or not. I haven't heard that yet.
Oh, yeah, it's a main event.
It's a main event.
Main event, so it's got to be.
So my personal opinion is that Oliveira will still be there in rounds 3, 4, and 5, and Kevin's got to win those first 3 because in rounds 4 and 5, Oliveira's still going to be there. If he is still there, the submission threat becomes more prominent. The guillotines. Kevin Lee tends to not just slow down, but he tends to make mistakes that could cost him the fight. He leaves his neck out, and that's what scares me. Oliveira's not a really big, muscular guy, so like the fact, but he gets on that neck. And his legs obviously seem like they're pretty damn strong. So he gets anywhere around that neck, and he if he jumps to the neck or he crawls up on you, jumps to guard, or he gets to the guillotine and wakes his way to the back, whatever it is. He's very crafty when it comes to his submissions, and when Kevin gets tired, he has like almost like a little bit of a shutdown switch of like, he makes a bonehead mistake and he just kind of like wilts in and just doesn't do a lot. And that not doing a lot, no movement, none of that stuff, makes it easier for someone like Oliveira to set up the submissions.
Yeah. It's a good matchup. I still think that, Kevin's got talent.
Oh, man.
He's still young. He's fast. He's explosive. He's got big power when, he hits people. If he fights smart, he can fight with anybody. It's when he loses his mind and just starts freelancing, gets himself into trouble.
Well, he's now up at TriStar, right?
Yep.
And so the fact that he's there makes me feel like, and we saw with this last fight.
That's a good thing.
He came in with a good game plan. When he lost his coach, Robert Follis, he just seemed lost. Had no
lost.
guidance. He had no direction of where he was going. I think him being up there with Faraz is a good thing. He's got a good camp. He's around good people that know how to, carry themselves and conduct themselves like champions. But some of them are champions. And so it just makes it easier for them, or have been champions, I should say. It makes it, I think, easier to just jump on board and it's like, this is the way we do things. It's been proven to work. Just follow our lead. Don't do anything stupid. Okay, and we can just guide you in what you need to do. And there's never been, I don't think anyone's ever questioned his athleticism and his talent. I did a whole Punk's Opinion one time on him, and the views on it was pretty intense. They did really well because I said like something was wrong with him after one of his fights where he lost, and that he needed to find a mentor, needed to find someone to guide him and give him constructive criticism in a way that he can absorb it. And like I said, he just wasn't the same guy after Robert Follis had passed. And we saw the fight with Gillespie. I think it was good for him to get that win, that type of win especially. Confidence is through the roof, and it just lets him know that whatever he's learning at that camp with Faraz and those guys up there at TriStar, it means that it's working. Anytime you get a win, it just builds your confidence. It makes you feel like, look, I'm at a new camp. And things like this now are working, and it makes it easier for just to keep doing what you're doing. Okay, I believe in you. I believe in what you're teaching me. I believe on what you're saying, and the sky's the limit for me as long as I keep doing what you're coaching me to do. So I'm good. I'm happy for him, man. I'm really happy for him.
So am I. He's a great kid. Yeah. Hey, what about it? I love the fact that Rory McDonald signed with the PFL.
Yep.
Ray Cooper wins the welterweight, and he comes out and says, "I want my first matchup in the next tournament. I want Rory McDonald." I went, "Ooh, I like that. Way to go, Cooper."
I like Cooper, man.
Ray's a bad man, dude. He's got heavy hands.
His
dad was a bad dude, and he's a bad dude.
It's so funny that his son is winning the PFL tournament. And I was supposed to fight his dad a couple times in Rumble in the
Which
Rock.
tells you how old you are.
I'm super old, man. It's so frustrating. I see it.
And you say I'm 75.
Man, I have a brain of a 75-year-old. Not your brain, even worse than your brain. So, no, it's funny I was supposed to fight his dad a couple times over in Hawaii in Rumble in the Rock. I want to say Rumble in the Rock, and then I want to say something else. Maybe even Super Brawl. That's how fucking old I am. Super Brawl. Yeah. Anyways,
TJ Thompson.
Yes.
Shout out to TJ.
Yes, buddy.
Good man.
I just saw him in Hawaii. Good kid, man.
Yeah.
Good guy. Good kid. Good guy. Good kid. What else? Was there something else? What else do we have?
I think it's pretty. That's this 246 coming up. That's going to be
there was something.
Got a lot.
I thought
Well, I question you. Have you watched Maurice Green? He's fighting Alexei Olechek.
No, I haven't seen him.
It's one of those. Maurice Green. He reminds me of I don't want to say it because I'll get in trouble. He's 6'7", tall as hell. So it's kind of like Olechek, fought Travis Brown. I did that fight, and I'm kind of thinking it's probably going to end up the same way. But Alexei's been having problems getting hit. He keeps on taking some damage. But that dude is strong as an ox. That dude's got a squeeze, man. I'm like, holy Jesus. Don't let that guy get a hold of you.
Like Russian?
Yeah.
Where?
Where's he from?
Yeah, somewhere.
Russia.
Yeah.
Hello.
Like Dagestan or like in the.
No. He's actually from Russia, near Moscow. But he's got, I think I want to say 11 Ezekiel choke wins. He's the guy that will let you mount him and he will choke you out. That's the best.
It's crazy when guys can do that with their arms. Like I feel like I have long arms, but
he's got it down.
But I can't do it.
Dude, he has got, I'm telling you, 11 Ezekiel choke wins, and some guys mounted on him, and he's all of a sudden that guy's tapping out.
I'm trying.
He's got that locked down.
What I felt like, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my phone because there was the list of things that I text you that we were supposed to cover today. So I'm waiting. I can't wait for producer Dave to do his job, so I'll do it for him.
Man, he just doesn't do it, does he?
Anything else?
There's nothing else on your list?
No, there is. I can see it from here. Pettis is suing USADA.
Oh, I text you that one.
Yeah,
that's not even on your list. That's on my list.
That's on my list here. It's on the list here,
bro. I can't do everything for you. Okay, get your brain together, man. I can't
even understand what he's saying. If you guys can understand what he's, let me tell you what he's saying. I can't do everything for you guys at home. That's what he sounds like. All right, so look at you laughing. What is your take on Pettis suing USADA?
I love it.
Oh, that's what I wanted to talk to you about since we're talking USADA. Jessica Penne.
Thank you. That's the one I wanted to talk about.
Jessica Penne and Pettis suing USADA.
Yeah.
Let's talk that real quick. Let me know what you think about Jessica Penne. To me, is on more of, because Pettis is just suing him because he got stitches on his finger for closing the bottle. Okay, look, whatever. It is what it is. I look at it like, you should have been a little bit more careful, that kind of thing, whatever it was. But he said it was like a broken bottle, I guess. Apparently it chipped or something.
Yeah, it had a chip and it cut his
finger. He ended up fighting with stitches or glue or something like that. And so
glue.
I don't know how much it affected or whatever. But bottom line is, Jessica Penne, though, basically being forced into retirement because of the suspension. But I wanted to ask you this. If she leaves the UFC or they cut her or release her, can she still fight in other organizations?
Yes. Absolutely.
But does the commission still kind of follow what USADA?
No.
Interesting.
This is the UFC as a promotion, as a business, decided that, hey, we're going to bring USADA into our promotion to do testing of our athletes for performance-enhancing drugs. Mm-hmm. This is where people get lost on this stuff, and I'll try to break it down for you to a point. And the problem is this. For so many years, guys were able to cheat the system. Mm-hmm. They could do certain things. They could actually microdose. They could do a lot of different things where it wouldn't show up. But as time has gone on, testing for all of these substances has gotten better and better and better, to the point where now they're able to test and they're able to find what we call picograms, as everyone knows because of John Jones. Mm-hmm. And to understand, there's things called nanograms, there's picograms, and we're talking, 1,000 difference, between the nanogram and the picogram. It takes 1,000 of the picograms to make 1 nanogram or something to that effect. Yeah. But the whole point is this. Their testing is so good as far as what it can find now, that it's finding things that are in people's systems that are so minute that would have no bearing on them having any advantage in any type of athletic endeavor. But they're getting caught with this in their system, and USADA is saying, oh, you're suspended, and now you have a 2-year suspension based upon you took something, it was in your system, and it could have been from them truly trying to cheat, or it could have been from them taking some type of supplement that has stuff in it, because that does happen all the time. Even though it sounds like bullshit, it does happen. And usually it's those supplements that you start to get this picogram, because there's just a little bit in there, and that's what the athlete will take, and then they'll get caught with these picograms, and all of a sudden they're losing their career off of something that would never have helped their career. So every athletic commission does things different. And when the athletic commissions test, some athletic commissions go off of WADA, which is the World Anti-Doping Association. That is what the regulations and bylaws for the Nevada State Athletic Commission are done off of WADA. They will use sometimes USADA as far as what USADA collects as, okay, USADA is collecting a sample from the athletes for UFC 246, so we'll use that sample instead of us collecting a second sample. We'll just use the sample that USADA collects and go with their findings. They can do that, and they can go off based upon the standards of WADA with whatever USADA comes up with. I know that kind of gets a little bit twisted for some people, but like California used to go off of USADAs and then said, no, we're not allowing you to do discipline. We'll do the discipline. Whatever you do, and we'll do our own. New York has got the ability to look and say, theirs is not black and white as far as, the athlete tests positive. I can tell you there's athletes that have tested positive in states. I'm not going to name the states because I don't want to get anyone into any kind of, situation, but where the executive director has looked at what the athlete has tested positive for, and they've looked at the numbers that USADA has come up with, and they go, no, I am not going to suspend that fighter for that because that will not do anything for them. Yeah. That is no doubt based off of a supplement, and this is ridiculous. I'm not going to affect this fighter's career. That's the right way to look at it. You've got black and white doesn't work. It's how you work within the black and white. It's all that gray in between that establishes you have common sense. And the problem that I see with USADA and the UFC, and it's not the UFC's problem, well, it is the UFC's problem, it's not their fault, is they went and allowed USADA to come in, and this is when, things like IVs were taken away from fighters when they were doing the weight cuts, because IVs can mask things. And so everything was done off of the way USADA did things for all these other sports. They did them for the Olympics and every Olympic sport you can think of, and they just shoved MMA in there when it's a different mentality. It's a different system. The weight loss is different than what they were used to. So there has to be this, and Jeff Nowitzki has worked on, hey, let's create a new standard of what we're going to say we're going to do as far as suspending someone in their career when what they've been, tested for and what has come up is not something that is going to benefit that fighter in any fashion as far as recuperation, as far as strength, as far as anything that's going to help them in that fight. Let's be at least cognizant of there are testing methods now that are so good that they can catch almost anything, even, that's tainted. You ate a steak and you ate it at a Mexican restaurant and it came from a cow that was given something that'll pop in your system. You didn't do anything wrong. You just went out and had a steak dinner, carne asada at your local Mexican restaurant, and now you're being suspended for 2 years of your career. That can't happen. That is not fair. We have seen guys like Josh Barnett. Josh Barnett got caught early in his career taking, performance-enhancing drugs. Got caught by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. His last, he didn't get to fight here in December, but his last fight has now been, almost 3 years.
Yeah, I think it's been over.
And that's because that was on a case where he was proven innocent of not doing something wrong, and you cannot take away someone's career in that fashion. That is not fair either. I hope I made sense.
No, you did. I've just noticed though that like normally, like so Jessica Penne came out and said something, and John Jones, and I'm not a big advocate of John Jones when it comes to this type of stuff, but it does make sense what you're saying, and I've heard this a couple times on Rogan's as well. Is what I see is that they get tested the week of, but then they get tested the day of weigh-ins or the day after weigh-ins, and what happens?
Day of weigh-ins is the stupidest thing ever.
So they basically pull from the fat cells. When you're cutting weight, you're depleted, and you're doing your drug test. So you're getting it down to where you're basically pulling it from just the fattiest parts of your whatever left of the fattiest tissue of your body is that it's the minute part that's left in there, and you're so depleted that they're pulling it from that, and then that's what's popping. That's what's making you pop.
Yeah, what happens is the athlete is dehydrating to make weight. MMA fighters they're losing weight to make this specific weight. Some of them, obviously, a lot of weight, and their body is just dehydrating. Well, they're not peeing then because they can't. So they get tested after they weigh in. Then they're given liquids, and they're tested when they can pee after that weigh-in. So sometimes it is, 2 hours after the weigh-in, they can pee. Sometimes it's 4 hours after the weigh-in, they can pee. That sample, when they put all the fluids in their system takes and is just, craving that fluid, and all of a sudden the fat cells fill up, and what comes out is things that are remnants of things in the past. There's all kinds of things that happen, and that's where your problem lies. There should be a specific period of time that you say, hey, we're not gonna test someone in this specific period of time past the weigh-in. No. You can do it the day of the fight. That's great. Yeah. Do it the day of the fight, no problem. But they're trying to get it for the weigh-in, so they're trying to catch people because they don't want them fighting. Saying, that's how Cormier lost his fight. Didn't lose his fight, but lost the fight. His second rematch against John Jones was John got caught off of that test right after weigh-ins. There has to be a better system.
Yeah, there has to be common sense.
There does.
That's the only thing that I can see. And now you have someone like Jessica Penne who hasn't fought for a long time, and she was plagued with an injury. I think the night of the fight she rolled her ankle warming up or something along those lines. She couldn't fight. Then she turned around, and then the next time got basically the day of weigh-ins. They found picograms in her system.
Yep.
The argument though is this: is how can we make adjustment? How can you justify making adjustments, moving the whole fight card from Vegas to LA for John Jones, but then now suspending her for 4 years? That's my look. Whether she's a big name or not, or in the women's world, she's a pretty big name. But you're not doing headline. You're not headlining a card. The bottom line is you got to use common sense, and you got to have it an equal playing field. You can't have standards for one person here and another person here. You got to try at least make them look close, at least a little bit.
It's when you're talking about standards. Here's the difference. You're talking about the fight that John Jones went, and fought, and I think it was against that fight against Gustafsson. Was that the second fight against Gustafsson?
Was it Gus?
I think it was Anthony Smith.
No, it wasn't Anthony Smith. I know it wasn't Anthony Smith. It was either Gustafsson. I'm thinking it was Gustafsson. But what happened, this is where I said, look, athletic commissions are all different. And you'll get some that will look at something and they'll say, hey, I'm going to look at that. And that fight was switched from Nevada to California. It took place at LA in the Forum. And that was based upon the executive director in California, Andy Foster, looking and saying, no, everything that you're getting from him is what was in the past. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the number, that's picograms, and look at what that level is. This is, again, you're taking something that has happened based upon a test, and now he's getting popped for the same thing that he got popped before. It's even less than he got popped for before, And so that's a remnant of the past. Common sense.
But with Jessica Penne, why are they not taking that same type of?
Well, again, you're talking about a difference between the Athletic Commission and USADA as the entity, because the UFC uses USADA as I'm trying to remember. Kung Lee was the guy that ended up creating the situation that the UFC said, we need USADA.
Why?
Okay?
Tell me what happened there.
Kung Lee got popped, and I'm trying to remember what fight it was that he got popped for. But
what did he get popped for?
Good question. I can't even remember. I can go back and look it up and find out. But the UFC tried to say that he got caught on the test because he got tested, and it was in a foreign country. They tested him. It was the UFC testing him. Mark Ratner was the director of regulatory affairs. So when the UFC went out of country, they would try to be, self-enforcing like an athletic commission when it came to drug testing. And so they actually had their own people doing drug tests. And then Kung's came back positive, and he complained about it, and they tried to, put him off and say, well, we've got to suspend you for this. And they got in trouble for it because they are now being the person that's the promoter, and they can suspend people, and it just backfired on them, and it just became a problem. And so they said, hey, we can't have it to where we're the ones instituting this discipline. We need to have an outside agency that is separate, and we have no part of it. If they're going to suspend someone, they're suspending them. We don't really have a say in it. And that's why they did the entire USADA thing. And they didn't do it. They did it to try to clean up their promotion and the athletes that were fighting within it. And they did it to try to separate themselves from having this interaction where now they were in a position where someone could complain about them, that they were being suspended by the promotion, and then the person could come up with all kinds of reasons why the promotion needed to suspend them. It was other than for testing positive for something. So that's where they needed that separation, and that's what they kind of got with USADA. But USADA was not prepared truly to test for the sport of MMA and be reasonable for what people were doing, based upon weight cuts and things like that.
So where do you think she goes from here?
I really look, and I would hope, and I don't know, I would hope that the UFC looks at it and goes, look, we can't have you fight because, USADA, has come up with this. There's a 4-year suspension based upon a second positive, but we're going to release you.
I hope so.
Because if they release her, and she's not one of their top fighters. Yeah. She's a great
good
fighter. She's fun to watch.
Yeah, she's good.
But she's not one of those ones that, they're losing a whole lot. I would hope that they say, hey, we're going to release you. She can go anywhere. She can go try to find a new home. She could go to, any promotion out there is going to probably love to have her, be it Invicta, Bellator, One, any of them. And she can continue on with her career. And she can continue to fight.
Make money.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I just noticed she had posted something about basically Jeff Nowitzki and Donna had reached out to her and said, you may want to try to get a lawyer. The last take is get a lawyer and try to fight them. And I just... Yeah,
she doesn't have the money for a lawyer.
She not only did, so she started a GoFundMe page. But here's the bottom line, is I sent her a message and just simply said, hey, the USADA is no different than they are different, but in terms of, they remind me a little bit of the people on the board at the California State Athletic Commission. They have no desire to listen to anything you have to say. They've already walked in with a predetermined outcome, and they'll continue just to pat themselves on the back to make themselves look good. And that just bothers me to no end. And you're going to spend $40,000 on an already losing case as soon as you walk in. And they've already made the decision, because if they change their decision, it makes them look bad. It makes them look untrustworthy, especially in a doping situation. It makes them look untrustworthy, like they don't know what the fuck they're doing. So there's no way they're changing this. And let's not forget, Yoel Romero was able to prove that his supplements were tainted, and they still made him finish his suspension.
Josh Barnett.
Same shit. So it's like
Same thing.
When you're talking,
And Jessica actually, they found in her supplements exactly what she tested positive for.
and so my point,
It's crazy.
yeah. So the point is basically they're not going to change. Do not spend. I said, do not plead with you. Do not spend $40,000 of anyone's money, even if it's not yours, to fight these guys. They will not change it. Leave it alone. This is them, and move on. I wish her the very best. You know, it would be nice to have her in Bellator, but I'd like to see her fight anywhere so she can make money. Yeah. But anyways, all right. Well, hey, that kind of wraps us up tonight. I think we went for about 3 hours, and
It wasn't 3 hours.
Well, I am preparing you for the Joe Rogan experience of talking forever.
Hey, as long as I get ready. Hey, I'm excited. Actually, I'm extremely excited. You've done the show before. You liked it, huh? You told me it was you said you had a blast.
Yeah, Joe is so good to have a conversation with because he's smart and he talks about everything. The biggest thing is you'll start talking about one thing and then all of a sudden he'll pop into something else and then you'll kind of talk about that and it pops into something that's like, we didn't finish the first thing. But yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. I haven't really had a chance to. Joe and I, we like in the early UFC days, we kind of talked to each other quite a bit. And then when I was with Strikeforce, I never really talked to him. I came back to the UFC, kind of touched base a little bit again, and then I left, and I hadn't really talked to him at all. And then I'd done Brennan's show a couple times, and and then I kind of reached out to him a couple times and hit him up about doing the podcast. And it was kind of like, we got to get you booked. It's going to take a long time. We're booked months out, which I can believe, but then just one day I'd posted something about, somebody getting caught looking at Miesha Tate's ass, and I said, look at the facial expression. It looks like Joe Rogan trying not to get caught again. And so he sent me a message and said, hey, you know what? Hey, we got to film, man. We got to get together. Let's do it. You want to try and get this date? And I was like, hey, I thought he'd never ask. So this is going to be good, man. I'm excited. And I, of course, want to chat with him a little bit, too, about the fight companion stuff that we just talked about. And moving forward, we're going to talk about the Cowboy and Conor fight because it'll be over by then. And I'm excited, man. This should be good. I think this is going to be some good time. We'll talk about Chris Cyborg and her fight next week with Julia Budd.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll see.
If there's one thing I love about Joe, he is a fight fan, and it doesn't matter what organization it is. Mm-hmm. He cares about, I want to see good fights, be it in Glory Kickboxing or whatever it is. He just loves fights, and he's super smart about them, very educated, and he's a wealth of knowledge.
Well,
so
him and
fun to be around.
Him and Brendan are one of the biggest reasons why Ben Askren was able to get to the UFC. They were big supporters of Ben at the time, and they were pushing, hey, why is this guy not in the UFC? And they brought him over later, but at least they were able to get him there, and like I said, that was my complaint a little bit with the Brendan thing was when you have that platform, you can do something positive like they did for Ben Askren. You got to be careful what you say, and not so much careful, just, understand that there's other people out there. In that situation. Anyways, I'm fucking one to talk. Jesus, man, I'm the worst. Put my fucking foot in my mouth. Yeah, the whole time Dave's looking at me like, you fucking idiot. You're putting your foot in your mouth right now as you speak. Ooh. All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully the show wasn't too long. You got exhausted listening to us talk. Maybe we'll try to break it up into clips. Like one clip this one. Anyway, never mind. Who knows? We'll just let it all go.
Who cares?
Look, bottom line is hit the subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play, iHeartRadio, all the platforms. Just hit subscribe. Also on YouTube, hit the thumbs up. Share our videos, please. Anything you guys like. We also put out short little clip videos about the ways we thought that Conor was going to beat Cowboy and the ways that we thought Cowboy was going to beat Conor. Check those videos out. Those are pretty dope. I'm going to pat myself on the back, kind of like the California State Athletic Commission and USADA. Okay, and give myself a pat. And here we go. Bottom line is we had some really good content that came out. Also, the Khabib video is out. Also, and Tony videos. We did short clips of those as well, breaking down how we think both those guys could potentially win in their upcoming fights as well. So check those videos out. And we were looking to do some more stuff coming up. John and I are brainstorming his 75-year-old brain and my CTE brain. I think we're going to be right on track to having good stuff coming up. Perfect. Big John, what's your handle?
Handle John McCarthy MMA at Twitter and at Instagram.
Follow us at Wayne In Show on Instagram, and then we're working on a Twitter right now, I believe. Yeah.
We don't have a Twitter?
No, we don't. It's like we had one.
What the hell is Dave doing?
I know. We had one before, but like Dave doesn't know what Twitter is because he's a millennial. So he doesn't really, they was kind of around before him kind of thing. So, but yes, we are going to get that Twitter going because I think between IG, YouTube, and Twitter, I think that's a great marketing strategy. We'll get it going. Anyways, you can also follow me at The Real Punk on IG and Twitter. And that's it, man. We had a great show. Today was a good show. I enjoyed this. I feel like I hadn't talked to it forever. We haven't done.
That's why you know it's a good show is you miss talking.
I actually do sometimes. I actually do. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It's Scotch o'clock. I'm gonna head home and get me some scotch. You're gonna have some whiskey, and we're gonna have some fun. Enjoy your evening. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye, guys.